go live button, I've got a countdown timer that people are going to see. Yeah, it should be. We'll switch it over here in about 30 seconds. I don't think I have set up my... Oh, yeah. I did not set up the Chrome share, so when we flip over to Chrome, it's going to take me a second. That's cool. Yeah, right? No, this is all duct tape and bubble gum. All right. And we're live. Here we are. All right. Well, welcome to the weekly Tuesday Atlas live stream. My name's Andy. Matt's on the right side of your screen, and we're with Atlas Precision Consulting. So we are a consulting and software development firm that works mostly on Profit 21 ERP system by Epicor. So we do pretty much all things P21, whether it's support or development, customizations, reporting, pretty much anything you can think of. Today we're going to be talking about sales pricing, and we're going to kind of take you through all the base layer setup for sales pricing, how to set it up at the system level, the company level, customer and ship to level, things you need to know in item maintenance, and then talk through whether it's job contracts or price libraries, last margin pricing, all that good stuff. So this is really just meant to give you guys sort of like a firm foundation in what sales pricing is all about. Before we get to that, down at the bottom of the screen, we're not only trying to give good information, we're trying to support a charity and raise money for a good cause. So down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see our coffee link, ko-fi.com/atlasprecon. We are raising money for a local charity here in Coleman County, Alabama, called Kurt's Closet. They provide essential needs and clothing for underprivileged kids here in the county, and they do an amazing job. We try to support them as much as humanly possible. So our commitment is trying to raise $250 a month through our live streaming to support them and donate it to them. So if you want to help us out with that, great. If not, we understand, no harm, no foul, but we certainly appreciate it. We know they do as well. Matt, do you have any thoughts before we start diving into this?
I'll give lots of thoughts as we go on. There are a lot of great things about pricing in P21 and a lot of questionable things I have in P21.
Yeah. Hey, look, I have my LGM mug today, so it's all going to be good, man.
Yeah, it's not the worst pricing system I've ever seen. I'll give it that.
To me, it's got there's a lot of things I like about it. It has a lot of power, a lot of different ways you can do things. Obviously, we've run into situations with clients where it doesn't do what they needed to do, or if in order to back into it and make it do it, it creates this huge lift for maintenance. And so those are some of the things we want to talk about is, just because you can do it a certain way, maybe you don't want to do it that way if you don't have to, because it creates a huge maintenance thing. And I think the one thing that we didn't talk about, Matt, when we were putting show notes together that kind of just came to top of mind was, if you have to take this pricing schema and get it out to your website for e-commerce, I mean, that is something that we get involved in a lot. And, people don't want to have that constant connection back to the P21 API to be able to do pricing. So anyway, there's a lot of things to think about on that. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and switch the screen. It's going to take me just a second to get it all fixed because I totally messed it up and didn't. I absolutely did not set it up for the screen share. So let me get the window capture going. I think this is it. Is that it? I think we got it. Please tell me we got it. I'm waiting for it to come through on YouTube. Okay, there it is. We're good. We're awake. All right. So as we go along, feel free for the viewing audience to drop questions into chat or whatever. That's what we're here for. It's meant to be
or
interactive.
text me. That seems to happen.
Yeah, that's weird. You know, listen, and I appreciate everyone that texts Matt, but that does nothing for our YouTube engagement. Does a lot for him, does nothing for our YouTube engagement. So put it into live chat so that we can boost engagement. Anyway, so I think let's just start with system settings. Probably the best place to start, and then we'll go from there. Right off the top, I don't see this one used a lot, Matt. In fact, I don't know. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head who does use it. But it's recalculate price during shipping. Do you know if we have anyone that uses that? I can't think of anybody.
I've never seen anybody use it. And also, I don't know if it would recalculate something that had a manual price edit. I don't believe it would. We'll have to talk about that when we get the order. But no, it's one of those. And we said this, was it last week or probably every week, that just because there's a setting in P21 doesn't necessarily mean it has value to your company. It may have been a very specific thing that for a certain industry or a certain large enough customer that it ended up in the base system. But no, I would not say I don't know if I've ever seen anybody use it, honestly.
Yeah, I can't. I've seen people have it turned on erroneously and not understanding why prices are changing when they invoice. But that's really about it. So I guess that would be a point out, right? If you're getting invoice prices that don't match what your order prices were, check your system settings and see if somehow, some way that got turned on. That may be what it is. The next one is default the sales price UOM to the order UOM. I think that's really just a player's choice on how your items are set up and what you're doing as a company. There's probably not a lot to talk about there. The next one's interesting. It's whether or not you're going to override the price when you substitute an item. And basically saying, if we sub an item, are we going to override the substitute price with the original price? I don't think I've ever messed with that setting before, but there again, we have very few people that use substitutes. Although I think a lot more people could benefit from it personally.
It's a good system.
Yeah.
If it just like everything in here, it's a good system if you understand it and try to use it, but it may not be for everybody.
Well, the next section is one I want to spend some time on because I really feel like this is either not the most, but either an underutilized or a misutilized feature.
Where it pops up on every single order.
Exactly. And so there's stuff that we can talk about when we get to the customer side of this as well, but profit limit warnings, I think, have a lot of value. I personally feel like as a business owner, just from my perspective, the two most important decisions right off the top of my head that I can think of that get made in a company are, number one, who gets to join the organization. I mean, who you're putting on the team, to me, is like top of the list. But then right below that, I think one of the most important decisions that gets made in a company on a daily basis is how much to sell the product for. Because it is the easiest place to lose not only gross margin but net margin. And I think a lot of times when people are making that pricing decision, I don't think that they necessarily have a good bead on the fact that if I sell this for $10 and it costs $9, right? that's a gross margin. Well, let's take it even farther than that, right? Like, let's say that I sell it for 10, it costs me 6, and below the line I'm going to lose $3 in operation costs and all of that, right? So all the way down at the bottom, I've got a 10% net return on that sale of $1, right? If I could just sell it for $11, I've doubled my net margin, and that's $2 going on all the way down to the bottom line instead of 1, and now it's 20%, or not quite 20%, but in real dollars it doubles up. So it's really important, and I think that when you're setting up sales pricing in your system, and not really just so much in your system, but setting up sales pricing as a theory of how you're going to manage it in your business, who gets to make that decision, who gets to override that decision, those to me are extremely important, Matt. I don't know. What do you think?
No, there's a lot of, and there's some, you have different philosophies. You have to me, it should be the people that are running the business that make the decision on the profit level. Some companies give a little bit too much control to the people actually entering the sales order to kind of manipulate that a little bit. And there's one particular place I'm just thinking off the top of my head in the order entry on the totals tab that can just totally wreck an order if you're not careful.
Yeah.
But no, it needs to be something like actually thought out. Somebody that not just taking in, oh, let me go look at what our average cost is on that, because that doesn't necessarily reflect your real landed cost of everything else that goes into that item. Landed cost or average cost in P21 does not account for, somebody entering the PO for that item, somebody receiving it, somebody paying the bill, and most people aren't going to see that stuff, right? So, well, you can't just look at margin based off of, because like you said, when your example, that would have been, that's a 40 margin.
Yeah.
We paid 6 for it, we sold it for 10. Well, no, but there's a lot of other business stuff that gets ran in there. It's only 10%. So now if you change that margin to 30 to do your customer a favor, you've just broken even at that point.
Right. That's exactly right. And
not even broken even, you lost money. You lost $1. Yeah.
So I have a story for this, actually. Not for that specific example, but close enough. We got into one system. This is way back when. And I was doing some pricing analysis. And we found that the company default price was set to a 1.25 multiplier. Now, first off, there was an erroneous thought that was 25%. It's not. 1.25 multiplier, I think that really comes out to like 17-18% margin is what you're making. But like that was the if all else fails price, right? 1.25 times average cost. And it was told to me that that's just there just in case it never gets used, because everybody prices everything, per application to get the most out of it. I was like, okay. So I did a little experiment, started digging into the data. And what I was looking for was instances. Well, the first thing we did was we changed it to something other than 1.25. We changed it to something that no human would think of on their own. So I think I changed it to like 1.2502 or something weird, right? I don't remember the exact number, but it was something that a human wouldn't come up with on their own. And then we let it ride for a few months. Came back, looked at it. What I was specifically looking for were order entry lines where the sales price was a 1.250 whatever multiplier against cost, and the price had not been edited. So what is that? It was the system calculated price. I was trying to determine the number of instances that things were going on to an order at that, we never used this price, right? And we found out it was about 2% of the time, which I know what you're thinking, Matt. 2%, that's actually pretty good. Hang on, there's more to the story. 2% of the revenue dollars were going out at this system default price, which was only 18 or so percent, whatever it was. And which doesn't sound bad, except this company was doing over $100 million a year. So we're talking about $2 million of sales that I don't know any other way to say it than it was just being mailed in, right? Like whatever the system tells me, I'm just selling it that and moving on. And the worst part was we were able to knock that down to the user, right? Because we know exactly who, and it was everyone. It wasn't like there was like one bad actor, you know. It was like everyone gets lazy sometimes. It happens. And so I said, well, let's do this. Let's change that multiplier to 1.65 and see what happens. You know what happened? Nothing. They just made more money. Yep. And so I'm telling that story to illustrate the point that no matter how good of a job that you believe everyone's doing, it may not necessarily be the case. I mean, this is a serious decision. So if you're, on a management team, running a business, you own the business, whatever, think about the severity of what bad pricing decisions can do to you. Before we move on, we've got a question about when we're going to do a walkthrough on WWMS receiving, multiple people receiving a container at the same time. We don't have that on our schedule at the moment. We'll certainly be happy to add that as a suggested topic, and if it's something we feel like we can dive into and do, we will absolutely do it. So all of that discussion about default pricing really comes back to profit limit warnings. Either I see them not turned on at all, which if you've locked down pricing and made it where people can't override it, and they just have to accept whatever your company price structure is, then you probably don't need it, because it doesn't matter, because the user really can't affect it anyway, or shouldn't be affecting it. You've made the call. But more often than not, what I see is that this is how it really goes. There's a room with a conference table, right? And the discussion comes up about what to do with profit limit warnings, and it's, we don't sell anything here less than 25%. And so, okay, great. We're going to put the profit limit warning in at 25%, and then that's it. And then the first complaint is, oh my gosh, we're being flooded with profit limit warnings. And well, how can that be? I thought you didn't sell anything below 25%. I don't know. Have you seen that one before, Matt?
Yeah, well, and just like any kind of warning or any kind of pop-up in any kind of system, if it happens more than 20% of the time, it's just people are just memory muscle just clicking through stuff.
Yep, 100%. They're not even reading it.
No, I mean, they're not. The whole point of a warning should be to pop up when it's an anomaly. Mm-hmm. So you have to be, like you said, you have to really know what you're selling your stuff for before you just arbitrarily set up a warning. Because you can imagine, especially because you can set it at the line level. You imagine if you put in 20 items on an order and 3/4 of them are under that gets real annoying.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's not their fault unless they're manipulating the pricing. So that's really annoying. Absolutely.
So you can enforce that at the order line or so you can have either or both and or the order header level. This is the default. If you turn this on, this is what will be underneath all of your customers, which I would recommend you set something kind of lower there. And then for individual customers, or actually you probably want to set it higher here. And then for individual customers where you have contracted pricing or stuff like that, then you can make adjustments right there. Okay, so default previous request start date. Why is that under pricing? That's range.
Well, yeah, previous requests. Then that might even be something that we need to talk about because it technically does involve pricing and you can recalculate pricing. I don't know where else you would stick it other than maybe
general. I don't know.
Yeah, probably general under order processing would be. But my logic is because it's tied to it can affect pricing when you're bringing items on. I guess is their logic. But anyways.
Well, okay. So, what's the default previous request start date? I would say from a pricing perspective, if you have an internal number, and this can and probably should change as market conditions change, right? So if you're in a long stretch where prices and costs are relatively stable, you might stretch that back a little farther. But if you're, if you don't want to take a chance on somebody putting that item back on an order again at too low of a cost, you might want to pull that into 30 or 45 days. Now, again, like Matt said, there's options in there to make it recalculate. I don't remember. We'll find out when we get into order entry. I don't remember if recalc is checked by default or unchecked by default.
It's unchecked by default.
Yeah. So again, we're depending on the user to do the right thing.
Also, something to keep in mind with that, that's not really necessarily related to pricing. If you have that set to 0, it's just going to go back forever.
Forever, yeah.
And you're querying the database on
forever
for all these records. So, I mean, if you've been selling somebody something for 6 years, you're bringing back 6 years of records. Now, it does it a little weird because it'll bring back, again, we'll get into that.
Okay. Job contract pricing.
3045 is about normal. And you can keep in mind, you can edit that on the previous sales screen. This is just what it's going to default to.
Right, exactly. Okay, clear cached pricing information after every order or sales price inquiry. I believe that might tie back into express pricing, or it may be a new caching feature that Epicor uses to try to make things go faster. So that if you're hitting the same item for the same customer over and over and over again, it'll return the price a little quicker. I guess it would depend on just how dynamic your pricing is, Job-based contract pricing. We're going to talk about job contract pricing. I'm a huge fan of that feature. I really am. I think in a lot of ways it can be used as a substitute for price pages. That is very nice and clean and actually gives you a little bit more information and insight.
There's a lot of different control you can do on it too. I have one major issue with job contracts, and we'll get into that when we talk about them.
And then the rest of those check boxes just kind of revolve around how contracts are going to work. But then you've got over here on the right side whether or not you're going to use vendor contracts, number one. But number two, are your price pages going to be good for price and cost? And then express pricing, which we're going to talk separately about what express pricing is and how it's different from regular pricing. We've actually already got the help page pulled up for it because there's some good information on there. Let's see. We're still in contracts. Okay, and then consignment. So if you guys have scenarios where you're delivering material to a customer and then charging them based on what they use, if you're not using consignment like CROs and CUOs and consigned inventory contracts and stuff like that, I think it's worth looking into. It's nice. You end up with a kind of a virtual warehouse for that consignment. You transfer material to it. You can bill off of it. I like the feature. I think it keeps things organized pretty well. And then next is pricing based on last margin. I detest this feature. I just do. But not because of the feature. I just don't like the theory. I have seen companies throw margin down the drain with this feature before. I want to make 25% on this in a falling cost environment. So they just keep selling it cheaper. and they could have gotten an extra 3% for it because they improved their cost, but instead they put it on the street, gave it to the customer. I just don't like that. I think it's just too easy to lose margin. So that's my personal opinion, but whatever. Let's see. And then recalculate in the quote to order wizard is an option, and whether or not you're going to default to that. Allow profit percent by product group price recalculation of 0. I don't know what that means.
No, that's word salad.
Yeah, that's I'm leaving that alone. Okay. Recalculate cost for price edited items and show expired price pages and sales price maintenance. Okay. So that's the crux of system settings.
And a lot of those, especially those last ones there, are more defaults than actual functionality, whereas like express pricing turns on functionality. Before we jump into, I did think of one other thing that we didn't talk about before we get into the actual price. There is one particular setting in user maintenance that I think is important, where it allows a user to see the profit.
Okay.
Yeah,
let's definitely do that. So I'm going to try this little feature. I added a stream marker, but I don't know what that means, so I'm still going to write down the timestamp. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and hop over there and do the user maintenance thing, because I think you're right. That should be quick. And then
yeah, it's just one particular setting, and again, it's on how much control and how much visibility you want your users to have.
Alrighty. So that would be
the view cost and profit and order entry.
Yep, right here.
Yeah. And so you can set it to all. Default, I'm not sure what default means.
Yeah, I don't know, because I don't think there's anything in.
Oh, I see. Above it is your default cost, whatever you want to base your margin off of. I think so. They could see.
Oh, just the order
on,
cost. Yeah,
right.
No, that
if
makes
it's set
sense.
to all, then
it would probably be all of these.
Right. All that are selected. Yeah, on the cost tab, it'll. And we'll look at this. It shows you the profit margins on each individual cost type. But I don't believe that affects the profit spot in the totals tab. I could be wrong, but I still think that's visible and very dangerous.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just wanted to call that out. It's really one of the few things I think that affects pricing in user maintenance. And it's really more tied to cost, less than actual price, but it's still tied to profit.
Right. Well, again, you're talking about like how much data is it appropriate for you to put out into the organization, right? I mean, there's a lot of theories on that. There's a lot of like I have worked at companies where I had almost complete control, within very wide boundaries of how to price. I had companies that I worked for where this was the price of the product. If you need a better price, call the manager and, we'll talk about it. No idea what the cost was. To this day, still don't know. And it didn't matter. We were selling list and discount. So, yeah. All right. So I'm trying to be a good noodle, man, and get these bookmarks in. Let's talk about express pricing, because I don't know that I remember exactly what version of P21 this came out in. It's not been very far back in the past, maybe three or four versions ago.
Was it in the first or second full web version? I think
that could be right. That could be right. So let's talk about like the differences, right? So the two flow charts that you see here, the upper one is like how pricing works, and then the lower one is how express pricing works, right? And so the main difference is another decision point between last margin pricing and going into the SQL-based price engine for Profit 21. So it's still going to look for whether or not you're using job contract or last margin. And then, if that is true, it's going to go into the regular price calculation. And then, let's see. Yeah. But for anything that doesn't qualify for those two things, then it's going to say, hey, does this work for express pricing? And if it does, the express price engine is going to take over. The idea, look, the main thing to understand about express pricing is the performance of this really doesn't show itself until you start doing batch pricing, right? So it's not going to be remarkably faster at returning prices one for one, like typing them into order entry. But where it should be better is, to what degree I couldn't tell you, but the idea is that it would be better if you were trying to retrieve 20 or 30 or 50 prices or however many. So here's what's in and here's what's out. So I'm always nervous when it says most price pages. Well, I'm assuming that the exclusions are all exclusively or explicitly listed on the right, but let's hope so. Pricing pages, for the most part, will work with Express. Multiplier-based price libraries, customer multiplier pricing, and company default pricing. What is not included is job contracts and last margin pricing, but that's to me is kind of a misnomer because those two things get handled before it makes it to Express. So just understand that you can still use job contracts. Carrier contract pricing, vendor contracts do not work with Express pricing. Manual pricing, obviously, because it's, manual.
You're manually typing in it.
just throwing that out there. Strategic pricing, I'm going to assume that they mean SPA's strategic pricing. I think that's still the only one that's like native to P21. Price pages with a UOM totaling basis. That's a weird delineation. Mm-hmm. And then price pages that use other cost or purchase price as the source. So, I mean, those are a couple of pretty significant gotchas because you could very feasibly be in a situation where you're using those price sources 5% of the time, but it would basically render it not usable across the board. But that's the idea with express pricing. The one thing I think you have to look at, I believe, I don't remember how this works in upgrades, but I feel like it's turned on by default. I could be wrong about that, but I'm feeling like when you upgrade past the first version of when that came out, or up to at least the first version of when it came out, I want to say it's on by default. So again, these are just things that you're going to want to look at. I could be wrong about that, but I'm feeling like that's right.
And I would say, like, we're not going to obviously read all this stuff verbatim to you, but this is actually one of the really good.
This is a good help file. Yeah.
Good help file. Sometimes
we know how you feel.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes it's hard to find the stuff you're looking for.
Yeah.
But when you can find it, like this one wasn't hard to find. There is some good information in there. It's just, it's getting to it that is the more complicated part in the web version.
Yeah.
I feel.
If you're going to use it, you need to enable the system setting. And then if you want to deactivate it for a particular customer, you can do it on the sales pricing tab in customer maintenance.
Which we'll get into all that.
Yeah. And then you have a sysadmin level screen called Express Pricing Comparison that I don't think I've ever opened. But it allows you to verify express pricing accuracy. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I sound like some of our customers. I don't know how much I want to trust it when it comes to pricing. The fact that they have to build in an accuracy.
Well, okay, so
test.
so Matt, do you remember the movie Broken Arrow?
Yes.
You remember the line where the guy's like, "It's scary to me that losing nuclear weapons happens so often. There's a term for it." That's kind of how I'm feeling right now.
Man, that's a call.
Hey, man, that's what I'm here for.
Is that John Travolta?
John Travolta and Christian Slater, right?
Oh yeah.
And then and well, there are a lot of good actors in that.
Oh, Howie Long.
Howie Long was in it. Frank Whaley was in it. Delroy Lindo was in it. He was actually really good in that. Sorry, I know, total sidebar, but that's what you get if you venture.
You have to put a little call out for Broken Arrow segment.
Right? Yeah, we need to link it in the description for sure. Yeah, we will. We have to link Broken Arrow in the description. All right, awesome. All right, let's see. So we're gonna move on to company maintenance. We're moving right along here today.
Did you make your note?
I made my note, man. I'm like, it's right here in front of me, so I'm trying not to forget it. I just got to find the screen. Okay, so company maintenance, there is a sales pricing tab there. And what we're doing here is really two things. We're determining like what the default source price is going to be. So, and you've got a range of things to pick from. And then I keep forgetting you can't see it. So you've got average cost, last received PO, next due NPO, other costs, prices 1 through 10 are there, primary supplier cost, standard cost, and supplier list price. The other two I'm leaving out because you would have to have strategic pricing turned on for that. So I'm not really going to get into that. But once you decide what your default source price is going to be, that's kind of, again, that's your, hey, if we don't know what to do, this is what we're going to do. And then what's your default multiplier against that? So let's say, for example, that you're an industrial distributor and you're working with a vendor and the vendor sells you at a 0.5 multiplier, and then you want to turn around and you sell on the same list and discount just at a lower discount or a higher multiplier to your customer. Let's say you sell to your customer at a 0.8. That's might be your default price would be a 0.8 against supplier list. That's totally valid.
It's kind of like a fallback. Like it's a backup to any actual decision made pricing you made at a customer or ship to level.
Correct. And then, these other prices down here, we're getting into like which of these are we going to put into the pool of things to use as price sources. I think this is, does this apply to job contract? I know it applies at price pages.
No, I don't think it does, because I tried to go here when my previous job, and we wanted to eliminate a bunch of that. And so I went in here and eliminated ones that we didn't need. Mm-hmm. They're still, to my recollection, still available. And we can verify that easily because we already have prices 6 through 10 are off.
Yeah.
So if they show up in the, but I believe this is based on for price library pages, books, and all that, and what they would be thinking.
You also have a sales price page type search order. So this again gets into what type of price page can be used in pricing, number one. And then in number two, what order they're going to hit in. So you can slide these around. So like if I want to slide product group up higher, I can do that. So again, if you're not, these are like little things that can be tweaked, but are often forgotten that they even exist. And so that's just another place to look. If you're not getting the results you think you should be getting, like, hey, this should have hit this, but it hit this other thing, could be because of the way this search order is set up for price pages. And then I think I don't think there's anything else of real note here. Well, there's price rounding. but I don't know that. That looks like it's just specific to cash transactions. Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, that seems like a little in the weeds for me. Like I don't.
That's deeper than I want to go for sure.
That also seems very. There was some. Again, this is one of those things. This is somebody that was very much.
Yeah, somebody wanted this feature.
Right, and it's funny because we created something kind of like this, but more to a company's liking.
Well, this is company maintenance, right? So this is all or nothing. And
right.
I believe the solution you're talking about, we had to actually limit. We had different rules at different locations, I think, if I remember correctly.
Right. Well, that one was based on a price page, and then one we did was based on location. But
yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, awesome. Just moving right along, Matt. Let's go to the customer side, and I will make my note. Okay. Take us through it.
Well, the first major decision is the pricing method, because if you don't have that set to, if you could have 20 libraries down here at the bottom, but if you have your pricing method set to multiplier, it doesn't care about the libraries. It'll still care about contracts, but it won't care about libraries. Multiplier, if you're a very straightforward, simple, this customer is going to get 20 off of list, you could come in here or 20 off of price one. Everything they put on there, that's what it's going to be.
Yep. Now, we see...
Unless you have a job contract.
Correct. I would say... I mean, we have distributor customers that can manage it this way, because their product lines are straightforward enough. Their pricing is pretty tight as far as all their supplier pricing works the way it's supposed to, and this works for them. And the benefit of it is it's dead simple to manage. I mean,
and it is customer specific. So even if it's not your normal, but this customer, you've worked out a deal to keep it simple instead of contracts and all this kind of stuff. We're giving you this off of list.
Yeah.
Because maybe they only buy a couple different product lines from you.
And the other side of it too is, I mean, if your deal is that you're going, if you have a deal with a customer if you're selling them on a cost plus basis, and again, I don't have a problem with cost plus, because whatever your cost is plus, right? It bothers me to give margin away, but at the same time, if you've made an agreement, we're going to sell you at cost plus 35%. I mean, you absolutely have the ability to go in and set it to average cost. Now, multiplier and margin are two different things.
Right.
So if it's 30%, or whatever, that's not a 1.3 multiplier. You're going to have to do some math there. I'm trying to think if I could actually pull that math off in real time. Maybe, I don't know. But remember, when you're marking up, you divide, you don't multiply. So, if you want a 30% margin, you got to take that cost divided by 0.7. So you can work that back into a multiplier, and I think it's going to come up like 1.4 something. But just be wary. And be wary that those in your organization may not understand that, particularly for newer people that are doing pricing and sales. They don't know that that's how that math works. And so make sure you're taking the time to pass that information down into your organization. Okay, so next thing is whether or not we're going to use job contract pricing, and then whether you're going to force it. Like, you always have to use a job contract. And then if you are going to force it, are you going to allow... I think these are mutually exclusive. Are you going to allow non-job contract items on an order? So can a customer even buy off contract? We've seen that go both ways. And if so, do you want to prompt and say, hey, this is an off-contract item? This is an interesting one. Whether or not the cumulative quantity can exceed the job contract quantity. I like this. If we make an agreement that I'm going to sell you 1,000 of these for $10, I want the regular price to kick back in at number 1001. That's
Well, but if you have it turned on, it's going to allow.
Oh yeah, it'll just let it go right through. And then there's use all contracts as well, which is if you have multiple contracts.
Well, because if you don't have the use all, you have to put there's a contract field on order entry that you have to put the contract number in that you're going to use. Now, you can make the same mistake that I made, and well, once we checked use all, we just dyna changed that field away. The problem is if you're using consignment contracts, you still need that field. So it really depends on how you're using these contracts. Some people use it for very specific, these 5 items for this job. That's why it's called a job contract. And maybe you don't want to mix other contract pricing in there, so they need to select what contract. So it's just a matter of choice. Place I came from, we allowed them to use, because we had contracts for rebates, we had contracts for special pricing for other items. So we would use all contracts and allow them all to mix together.
Yeah, for sure. And then if we get into if you are going to use order based on last margin, you would check this checkbox and then figure out what your cost basis is going to be for that. And then after all of that, you get into pricing libraries. If you select pricing libraries and you don't have anything down here at the bottom, you're going to get a lot of goose eggs.
Well, it should default to
company default pricing.
Or a job contract if you have a job contract.
Yeah. So for your price libraries, you're just going to put in, I don't even know if we've set any up.
No, but we need to go through and create some anyway.
Yep. So we will wrap back into this once we start getting some things set up. And then Matt, you pointed out to me something that I really didn't think about, was that there are also price controls in ship-to maintenance.
This is something I personally learned probably about a month ago. I believe it was from Randy from our team that showed me this nugget, or maybe it was Randy or Danny. I don't know. They're generally my go-tos for when I run into a wall.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell us about
it. So essentially what this allows you to do is, because contracts are also based on ship-to IDs, and we'll get into that. But also, if you have a specific job site you're shipping to, or maybe this one location, and you don't want to use the standard price libraries that you have on your customer, you can come into the sales pricing tab in ship-to maintenance, and by default it's set to, hey, just go look at the customers. But if you do that drop down and change it to price labels, you can assign ship-tos that are specifically for this ship-to price libraries for this ship-to. And maybe that's not for everybody, but it is an option out there. I would say this is probably one of those things that would get used, maybe for very special circumstances. But yeah,
cool.
It was something that I was not aware of until a little month ago. And I think we say it a lot. We've all, if you add all of our time up together in P21 as individuals combined, we've got to be almost at 60 years worth of use, 50, 60 years, something like that. Just Randy and David from our team make up.
Oh, that's 35 or 40 on its own.
Right. So, but saying that, we still learn new things, and because there's so much in P21,
and it's evolving.
It is, and it's always changing. I think this is the only real sales pricing option for ship-to within ship-to maintenance, I believe.
Well, one thing that I forgot about too when we were in customer maintenance, and I want to jump back there right quick, is we didn't talk about profit exception warnings at the customer level. Now that's not in the pricing tab. That's in the OE options tab where, again, if you're using those profit limits at the system level, then at the customer level, you do have an opportunity to override them with different values. So I can remember a job or so ago for me, like they had system profit limit warnings at 20%, I think, some number, let's say 20. And then I would get this complaint, like I have to override pricing every single time because we always sell this customer at 15. I'm like, well then why don't we just set the customer setting to like 15 and then that will go away? Oh, I mean, well, one of these days we need to probably do a live stream on how to set yourself up for success with your customer settings. Because there are so many things you can do to help yourself not, for lack of a better term, piss off a customer. I mean, there are a lot of settings there, and a lot of times they just all get defaulted for go live to the same thing organization wide, and that doesn't necessarily make it the right thing to do.
I'm just seeing something that I've never used before.
Okay.
And again, I don't want to get into tangent, but this maximum shipments per order.
Yes, that's one of my favorites. That is how you prevent a customer from getting 15 invoices for one order.
So let me ask you this. What happens to the items that are still left on an order after that shipment?
So what happens is, let's go with this example. There's 3, right? So when I enter the order and print the first pick ticket, that's everything that can go, right? So that goes. That's one invoice. Then you receive some stuff in later, right? The back orders fill. Another pick ticket kicks out. That's number 2. From that point forward, no matter how much stuff comes in, the last pick ticket will not print out until everything is in, because you're saying there's only 3.
Okay.
I love that feature because we have clients that we work with where some customers are like, ship it all, or ship me everything you have and then one more back order, or I don't care how many times you send me stuff. But we have had clients whose customers have like torch and pitchfork behavior over, why are you sending me 10 invoices for one PO?
So it's like instead of a ship complete, it's like a ship complete by 3.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
It's just a feature. We had a customer that had a request around something like that, but that really wouldn't have worked. While we're in here, it's not really as far as calculating pricing, but there is an option down here to print prices on your pick tickets and on your packing lists.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. To me, you should never be sending prices out into the warehouse. They shouldn't be concerned about how much you're selling stuff for. I don't know why you would do that.
The only time I've seen it, Matt, is if somebody's is like they're pulling with the pick ticket, circling everything on there, and using that as the packing list.
But even packing lists, again, the people generally receiving the stuff, they don't generally care how much something costs. I mean, they're counting the widgets.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the options are there. It is customer specific. I don't know if you can make it company specific, but we were in here, so I saw it.
Awesome. All right. That takes us, and I didn't have this screen queued up, but we can certainly do that. Space bar failing me. There we go. That takes us to item maintenance.
And this is more covering price sources.
Yes. So let's go. All right, where do you want to start?
Well, at the top, you have default prices. And then you also have prices at the bottom. Now, if you set something at the default at the top, it's going to ask you, do you want to apply it to all the locations? So if you're doing pricing, one level of pricing, you would just set it at the top and then it would roll down to the bottom. Now, if you're using mass update, it doesn't automatically do that. You would still have to import prices at the price level or at the location level Now, what I'm not sure about is because I know, like when we talked about supplier pricing, if you have it set to location and it looks at the location and it's 0, it then defaults to the supplier detail cost. I don't know if you point to price 1 and at location 10 it's 0, but there is a default price in the top. I don't know if it rolls up or not. I'm not sure about that.
I'm not sure. I mean, a couple of things that come to mind in this. There's really two things that I've seen out in the world that I think are worth mentioning here. The first is multi-currency. Keep in mind that these location prices, they are in terms of the location's currency. So, and I found that, like, we had a customer with branches in the US and Canada, and I was like, why do you maintain different pricing for branch 105 versus 110? And they're like, oh, because that one's in Canadian. Oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah, I didn't know that. Cool. The second one is, and I think this is an interesting price strategy that I believe is fairly easy to maintain and implement. So I just wanted to bring this up as a way that you could do pricing and keep it relatively simple. And that is, we worked with a distributor that they were like a master importer and distributor of products, and then they would resell to other smaller distributors. Very little of their stuff was going direct, some of it, but not much. And what they did was they used prices 1 through 10 as their pricing level guidance. So like, you would go in and like, oh, this customer, they're a pretty big customer. We're going to give them level 3 pricing. So they would always be priced off price 3. And then, or if somebody said, hey, I know I normally buy 100 of these, I'm going to buy 1,000, and they're a price 4 customer, you might give them the price 3 as a deal. But what I liked about it was it gave the CSR, the salesperson, some flexibility in pricing with guardrails around it, where they couldn't just go to price 1, which was the best price you could get for it, unless that was, how that customer was set up.
Yeah, we used that in my previous life. That's how we did our price pages, right? Like this product group was priced page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and even though they get price 3, we're going to create the specific customer one where they're getting price 4 on this one. I did see something interesting on here. So because in company maintenance we blocked out prices 6 through 10 as a source, it appears to be grayed out on the location level, but not at the
higher level.
At the higher level.
Well, It does not filter down to the location. I mean,
that's weird.
That is a little weird, but hey, it is what it is.
And I don't know if this is still true. Standard cost, that's also another price source that you can manipulate. When my first go live of P21, we were instructed that price 10 should be reserved for what they called e-commerce pricing. And I don't know if that's just an old stable, like something they did back in the day, but that was something that they said, and maybe it was the platform that they
back in the B2B seller days. And I think this was true in the early days of ECC, but I think that a lot of that has since been overcome. Now, again, we don't do ECC deployments because that is handled between Silk and Epicor, so I've been through 2 of them personally, and that was years ago. So, but scuttlebutt has been that they've made some changes around that. But back in the day, like class 5, that is what B2B seller used to determine whether a customer was a B2B customer. And maybe even item class 5 was used for web items and stuff like that. So, but I think you actually have more flexibility. Actually, I think it's even in system settings now. Yeah, see, like contact, web enabled. Now it can be any of the classes.
But you still have to pick one. So
And that's just for contacts, right? So, and then you've got, all these different default source locations for prices that you can use. So you can pick, whatever you want. So there's definitely more, flexibility there for sure. That's a good catch though. Anything else in here we want to talk about?
I mean, go back to the general tab. I mean, this should be turned on anyways, but the update via pricing service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because and we've talked about it before, where pricing service is once you get the all that stuff set up, it is a good way to, or the best way probably out of the box to update some stuff.
Well, I'm gonna take a second here too while we're on this screen to talk about discount groups, product groups, and price families. I think in my experience, when people are going on P21, and I've had this conversation with probably 4 customers that were going live, maybe 5, but not a lot. And every time we had the conversation, it was like, I'm glad we spent 6 hours on the phone hashing that out, because it saved us so many problems down the road. But whole point of the story is, you got to have a strategy for how you're going to use all these different stratifications of product, right? And understand what they even can be used for. So are you going to use price families? Are you going to use, and how are you going to use a sales discount group and a purchase discount group? What are you going to use a product line for, or a product group for, rather?
Product group,
yeah. Those things I believe are important decisions. Product group I think is important because it actually has potentially has general ledger implications. That's the word I was looking for. So you can set your product groups up to flow into GL accounts, or you can set individual items and override GL accounts if you want. But I think it's just important if you're getting started in the process of thinking about going live on P21, really sitting down and having that catharsis of, okay, purchasing team, you can do what, for your pricing, you own this purchase group field. You can do whatever you want with it. You cannot touch sales discount group, because the salespeople are going to have ultimate control over how they stratify products for the purposes of pricing. And then if finance wants control over product groups for the purposes of how they structure it in the GL, everyone can have their way if you just think through it. What we often see happening is they set up one, and then everybody fights over it, and they never take advantage of the other mechanisms to separate products and group them. So that to me, I think is something that gets missed a lot, and I hope that more companies rather will look at that.
Yep.
Oh, what else is in here, man? I think we've
that's the majority of for what we're trying to do with pricing. I think I do want to spend some time in another session, item creation. I mean, just like the tabs we were talking about, customer maintenance, there's so much information to go over and completely understanding. And there are things that you may not know that exist in there. Like there are things that I didn't know exist in there.
Oh, for sure.
Well,
look, we're an hour in. Everywhere we're going from here is in the weeds. So let's take 5 minutes, let everybody catch their breath.
Okay.
And we will be back in 5 minutes.
Sounds good. And you can hear us talking on the stream still.
I'm good with that, bro. It doesn't bother me. I cut my mic, and then when I get set back down, I'll bring it back up. But I just cut the volume on my mic off. Whatever. It's reality, right? This is not like some highly produced thing. Yeah, you vanished. What'd you do? Cut out on me again? Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I need to do the version of this screen with you in it. All right. Yeah, you're back. Okay. So you said we're going to set this customer to use all? Or
Use
always?
all and use both. Because there's some downfalls to job contracts I want to... let's just go ahead and save that. I wanted to start with job contracts just because... Oh, you haven't set the... Yeah, just set the... Because in the hierarchy, that's first. So your job contract pricing, is more important than any other pricing because that's what it goes to first.
Right.
So.
Okay, so do we just want to go right to job contract then?
Yep.
Okay, cool. We can do that.
We're gonna create 2 contracts. So I can show you what happens when we have the same item on multiple contracts. And I will say this screen is not intuitive. So I learned
that is true.
Just recently that if you don't put a corporate address in there, you can use this contract on multiple customers, regardless of what their corporate address ID is. I was not aware of that because where I came from, we didn't do it that way. But that is being said, if you do what Andy just did here, is where he just went in and gave it a contract number. Really, the only fields that technically are required on this first screen are contract number, contract description, start and end date. Nothing else is required as far as creating it. Now, they come into play when you're trying to do different things, obviously. But that's worth noting. If he had put a corporate address ID in there first, then created the contract, it would be locked to only customers that their parent corporate ID is that.
That you breezed over the field. But I have seen this bite so many people, and that's the end date of the contract.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened lately, but we went through a stretch of a few years where, like, invariably every January, customers would call, something's wrong with our pricing. Well, your contract's expired. That's why your customers are not happy with your pricing.
Right.
And so much so, and this is where, like, sometimes you have to come up with creative ways to fix the problem. So what was put to us was, look, these contracts have end dates, but we may be in the middle of renegotiating with them when they end. So the last thing we want to do is bump the pricing. What can we do? So what we ended up doing for them was creating a UDF for the actual end date, and we would set that to what the contract's actual expiration date was. And then the end date field, I think we pushed it out like 90 days. We had a business rule that would go in and say, whatever this is, just give them a 90-day extension on the pricing, or maybe we set it further than that. I don't remember. But point being, it did give them a way to report off of it and say, okay, here's when these contracts need to be renegotiated by. But there was no risk if those negotiations ran long of the pricing getting messed up, thereby spoiling the negotiation of the contract itself. Right. So that is something to keep in mind.
And you have company maintenance still open?
I do.
So something, yeah, that's right. So let's go back to the sales pricing tab. Oh no, it was company. It was system settings. That's what I needed.
System settings. Okay.
Oh, do we? Okay.
We got
good. Pricing.
I am here for you, man.
Pricing. All right. So those job contract based defaults. So if you're using contracts and you're 99.9% of the time setting a manual price for a contract, do yourself a favor and change that pricing method to price as default. Um, that way, when you're setting up these contracts, if you're manually setting them up, you don't have to manually change each one of those from source to price.
So like
Now,
these settings in here, right?
well, not even that, the pricing method. So like above,
yeah,
you change price. When you create a new contract, it defaults that line to price, so you don't have to change it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you can even leave the default price as 0, but at least
Right.
the method would be set the way that you want it on the go in.
Right.
That's
Because
nice.
if you go back to the job contract, you'll see that ours is defaulting to source down here at the bottom. Whereas if we had set that to price, saved it, and logged back in, that would be price, and we could go straight into the price field. Because right now, you would have to change it to pricing and then go manually put your pricing in, which is probably what we're going to do.
That's a great tip. Yeah, that's a great tip for sure.
Or in other, like if you're always basing your, you want to start with a source standard cost, same thing, right?
Yeah.
Whatever your majority is going to be,
Set it
those
to that.
defaults. Yeah.
That's a great tip. I like that a lot.
Now we're not really, so the customer ID and ship to ID, those fields only come into play once we set those up on the customer ship to tab, which we will need to do. But let's go ahead and let's just set up our customer ship to on there. Now, since he didn't put a corporate ID in there, we could put whatever we want, but we're just probably going to set up the one that we have. Now here's the downside, my first downside to job contracts from my experience. Mileage may vary. In our world, our customers had multiple ship tos, and we didn't have pricing specific to their ship tos. It was just to them. So if a customer has 100 ship tos, that ship to has to be assigned to this job contract, which can be tedious. So we contacted some great folks at Atlas. To basically what we did was when we created a ship to, we did all of our ship to creation and ship to maintenance it was a company policy. We weren't a big fan of on the fly ship tos because of things, whether it's taxes and jurisdictions and all that kind of stuff. And what it would do is there was a checkbox that would say, hey, when I hit save, go add this ship to
all the contracts that are active. Yep, for this customer.
That have that relationship. I believe we did it where we had to have the corporate ID on the front of ours, but that was specific to us, and that was a lifesaver. We also did it if you created a new contract.
It would automatically pull in all the ship tos for that customer.
Yeah.
Yep.
So just keep in mind that if this customer has 10 ship tos and you've only assigned one of the ship tos,
that's the only one that's getting the pricing.
Right.
Yep.
Which obviously for us it doesn't matter. So now that he has that in there, then it does. Anybody in P21 should be kind of used to, you do one thing in one tab, and it lightens up. It activates another tab.
Yeah.
And that's what this has done now. And there's different settings, which I find it's pulling over customer defaults, but you can also like fine tune this. I don't know how many people actually go in there and do all this.
So where I see these settings getting tinkered with the most, and again, this is just my experience. It's got nothing to do with anything, right? Someone else could make an argument for whatever. Vendor managed inventory, VMI accounts is where I typically see people getting highly detailed in these fields because all of it helps that VMI run smoothly, and that's when you get into the bin settings and all of that, which are phenomenal. I mean, if you use it, and we've done some really cool modifications to make that as pain-free as possible. But yeah, that's what it's
I
for.
mean, we did something with that ties to VMI and contracts. Is we had a customer that came to us and was like, "Hey, I've already got this approved quote for this many quantities. I need that to be a contract." So instead of them having to import a contract or manually import a contract, we created a rule that basically they click a button and it goes out, makes a contract for all those items on that quote, sets the bin quantities and all that kind of stuff
Yep.
for their VMI, and it's I thought it was a pretty cool little feature.
Yeah, and then they also had, we also had another thing that had been built before that from that same order or quote, they could generate the labels for the bins. So really all they had to do was get the quote in, and then once that quote was accepted by the customer, we could fully automate the whole process of setting up the VMI with a few button clicks, right down to, okay, the contract is set, the pricing is set, the quantities are set, and oh, by the way, here's your bin labels to go out. These were for this was a fastener distributor. So, there was a lot of 72 hole bolt bins and things like that. But, so yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm a big fan of job contract, is just because it really does organize things really, really, really well for that.
Yeah, it allows you to do, there's so many different things you can do with job contracts. They're useful for rebates if you're doing what I called a claim back. Yeah, so you actually, your ship to has to be.
Yeah, I was hoping we could light up consignment info, but it didn't. That's fine.
No. Document links has notes, self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Audit trail, obviously. Now let's add an item, and then we'll come back up to the top, and we can light some other features up, I think.
Okay. You want to just do this on a fixed price?
Yeah, let's just do fixed price. Now here I will be honest with you. The whole pricing library option, not a fan. I don't really understand. There's some functionality that I don't feel like works.
Yeah, I mean,
clear.
The majority of the time that we're working with people to set this up, they're fixed price contracts. However, I have been involved in a couple of VMI deals where they were cost plus contracts. And so we just literally went in and set it up as these were simple. It was 2 times cost. So we just went in and went source and average cost.
You notice that price
grayed
6
out
through 10 no, they're still there.
Oh,
the source option. Remember I told you about those options.
Well, don't worry, you can't set it to anything.
Just saying. that seems kind of counterproductive.
Oh goodness. All right, so back to price. All right.
It's something else that I find frustrating. And again, I'm not trying to be overly negative. I'm just trying to point out things that I run into or have run into as struggles. So if you change that to source, it still leaves that price in there. It doesn't clear it out. So people just have to understand that price only matters if that price field is active. So if you change that pricing method back to source, it's still going to leave whatever price you had in there, but it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah,
it's not looking at it.
So
which is funny because in customer maintenance, when you set up multiplier and then change it to price, it clears out the multiplier. I wish it did that here, but it doesn't.
Just real quick, you may have missed the answer in Diag JOP, but what we said earlier about your question was we don't have that on our calendar at the moment to do the WWMS multiple receiving. We'll put it on our list of ideas, and at some point we can get to doing a walkthrough of that. Yeah,
just stay tuned because we try to put it up every a few days before our next live stream, what the topic's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe we'll build we'll have to put a little work into building up a good test WWMS session.
Yeah. Especially with container receiving.
Right. So.
All right. Sorry. Please continue.
Contract part number. I'm not really.
Now,
is that more information or is that?
So yes and no. Where I typically get the most use out of this is we'll put something there. Okay, so think of it this way, right? Like I'm selling bolts to Honda, right? Well, I have a part number for that item, but then Honda has their own internal part number for that item. So typically we would put their internal part number into the contract part number, and then that would print on the bin label. So there's a barcode for for the VMI, but then for the person consuming material out of it, there's a contract part number. Again, I'm sure it could be used for other things, but that's what I've used it for.
Source location. So by default, you'll notice that there was no location settings in our main setup. If you have 20 locations and you don't put anything in this field, whatever location is the source location, you're still going to get this same pricing.
Mm-hmm.
This allows you, if you want to, for some reason, only out of certain locations that they're getting this pricing. I would say it's probably not a great feature, because if you have a contract with like 30 lines on it, you have to make sure you set that up on all of them. Why there's not an arcing, hey, this is for this source location. And that may be one of those fields you can apply to all. I'm not sure.
Right.
But just keep that in mind. And it's the source location. So wherever the product is coming out of, I don't believe it's I think it would be the sales location. That seems kind of, you would think it'd be sales, right? Like, that seems weird that it chooses source location.
Well, it could just be that's where you're pulling the inventory out of. So, I mean, ultimately that's, yeah.
Yeah, there's no overarching, you can do
well, see, now you have a pricing sales location ID that you can set and make it different if you want for that ship to.
I got you.
So.
No, with that. So.
Okay.
Expiration date, you don't have to set one. But for some reason, if this contract goes, well, right now it's only going for a day. But if it went all year, but you were giving them pricing just for the next 2 months on something, you could obviously set that line to expire. That's not going to work.
I mean, dude, all I was trying to do is change the last digit. Okay, there we go.
So you could set the expiration date of that in that window. You can't set it prior to the start date, and you can't set it post the end date of the header contract pricing or dates.
I will tell you this: if from experience, if you get yourself in a situation where that expiration date's not set in the database, it will break your contract. It's weird.
Well, I think is it when you save it? Does it not manually put it?
Yes, it should. But
I'm just saying you don't have to set it yourself. I believe it should, but you can manipulate it if you want to.
Yeah, if you want to do extend on or bring it in on certain items, you can absolutely do that.
Rebate costs, I'm not going to go in on this because rebates is something that we're going to do. Maybe not a full thing on, but this is just more information that you can set that pulls over into order entry. Status, active, delete, inactive, I believe, and I don't know why there's delete and inactive, because they essentially do the same thing.
They do. Yeah.
Does delete fall off? I don't know if delete falls off. I don't think it does.
So. But what I wanted to run out to the right here for was this quantity invoice. This is a nice feature because as you sell off that contract, it does keep up with how many you have sold on that contract, which is vastly helpful when you're trying to figure out whether or not this contract makes sense for you, and what the margin implications of it are, or whatever. So I like that for sure.
Did we miss over the quantity field?
I think max quantity right there.
Yeah, so you can set a number, and if you don't have that checkbox that says to exceed, once you hit 500,
that's it. It's done.
You can obviously come in here and change that, or go turn that setting on, but that won't go back. And if they had an open order, you'd have to reprice that order.
And I don't want to breeze over this concept because, I mean, I spent, and I know you have too, Matt, we've both spent a lot of our careers in distribution line of business. And, like, this is it. This is like a major point of exposure. Giving your customer a deal for the next N number of months or the next N number of items, but never being able to keep up with it and roll it back, to what it's supposed to be when the deal's over. And then what ends up happening is the deal lasts forever. And, one of the things that I consistently had a problem with in distribution was, oh, I'm buying for this job, and then they want that price for every other job, or not even that, just their normal shop price or whatever. And what's nice about this is, like, for us, we would set up a different ship to for every job, and that's how you would control it. And say, hey, you get this contracted price, but only when you're shipping material to that ship to. We're not going to give you that price to ship it to your, warehouse or whatever. So again, I know there's always going to be like, well, you don't understand our customer. Yeah, I get all of that. Think of all the big names in industrial distribution. I've dealt with them, and I know that those negotiations can be horrendous, but there, to whatever degree you can control it, use the tools available to you to exert those controls, because it's money in your pocket.
So that, now here's something else. So if you try to enter the same item on which obviously we wouldn't do, we can do it, so we can shoot. If you put the same, it's going to warn you, hey, this item already exists on this contract.
Yeah.
So that way you don't, because if you have a contract that has 100 items on it and somebody's making a mistake, you want to make sure you're not.
Yeah, it's
why is that on there?
It's easy to mess up, that's for sure.
But we are going to do something where we're going to create another contract with the same item, just so you guys can see what that does.
So do we want to go into the bin side of this now, or do we want to walk through this example and come back to it? How do you want to do it?
I say let's save this. Let's go do it in a sales order, because we'll have to come back and create, and then we can kind of dive into that ship to stuff.
Got it.
And also I want to verify that it did update those dates like we were hoping they were going to do. And remember, we do have this customer set up to use all contracts, always use contracts. For some reason, if you didn't have that set up that way, you would have to see how that contract number field lit up there. You would have to
specify
have that
the
filled
contract.
in.
Yeah.
Now, I'll go ahead and say this. Maybe, I don't know if we can really demo that, but if you do have multiple contracts being pulled in on an order, that field's going to get populated up there with the first line that you enter, whatever contract it's from. It doesn't necessarily mean all those items come from that contract, and we'll show you where you can see what contract an item came from.
Huh? I feel certain it does.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's see.
That feels wrong. Oh, because you set it for tomorrow's date.
Well, yeah. I can't give you that pricing right now.
Well, while you're in here, scroll.
No, I'll go back.
No,
There's a history thing. It's not that big of a deal.
Scroll over to the right. I just want to see if it did update the line.
Hang on. I can't get to the bottom of the screen. There we go. Okay.
There you go. It did not.
It did not. Well, let's see what happens.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, and your contract is now going to expire in 2 days.
That's okay.
It's fine for this.
This live stream's not going to go on that long. I promise you that.
It may feel that way.
Let's try it again.
You have to clear the order.
Yeah.
You would think you wouldn't have to, because at the point of it pricing, it has to go through the process.
Unless it loads it up with the customer and ship to ID.
Preloads it.
Well, I don't know. No, we still got an issue here. What are we doing wrong? It's got to be that line thing. It has to be.
The date?
Yep. So, let's see.
Why didn't it auto set it? That's strange.
27th.
Can't do that.
I was just checking to make sure you're paying attention.
But why is it not auto setting it?
It could have just been the way we were messing around with it, for all I know. Let's see if that.
And we did put the correct ship to on there, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the next thing I want to check, but I'm pretty sure it's there. Oh, no. See, this is just wrong. What are we doing wrong here?
I want to know why your order date is starting on the 28th when it's actually the 27th.
I want to know why the find contract thing didn't work. All right, starts on 2/27. You know what? Let's just back it up another day just to be sure. Back this one up another day just to be sure. All right, it's not inactive. It is approved. It does have a PO.
Oh, you don't have to put a PO number to use a job contract, but you didn't put a PO number in there, so is it not allowing?
Do I have to put the PO number in?
I've never put a PO number as a default on a job contract.
I'll take it out. All that looks fine to me.
Yeah. Hit save on that. And obviously, if this customer wasn't set up to use job contracts, we wouldn't be able to create one. It would tell us that ship to customer combination is not valid for job contracts. That's a very weird.
I'm with you. Let's see if we fixed it.
Was it 00 that is so weird.
I'm not hallucinating. That is the right item, is it not? This can't be like, this is not a corporate address thing. What are we missing here? Seems like we're missing something simple.
No, because you don't have to have a corporate address ID on a job contract.
Right. Okay. So that's good. We don't have it set to inactive. There's the item. That is, in fact, it.
Is the item status still set to active?
Yep.
Set to active.
I do not know. Okay, we go to the ship to. It's definitely there, and it's definitely active.
Now, what about go back to the job contract header? Clean out the taker. Clean all that stuff out because that's not required stuff. I'm just curious what's going on here.
Okay.
Because taker is required, but I don't think contact or sales rep is required.
Well, and those just populated before when I pulled in the ship to ID and all of that. 2/26/2024.
Yeah, I mean it's in our window.
I know why it's defaulting to 2/27.
Why?
Because of where the server is.
Oh.
You know what? Let's just for giggles open these dates up just a touch more.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. 3.
All right, let's save that. I mean, I don't know what else it could be. I'm waiting for start getting random texts from people.
Yeah.
Bozo, go do. Wait. Oh, you're clearing the order. Okay.
Yeah. I'm almost to the point of like, did we change any system settings around job contracts?
Mm-mm.
I don't think so. We did save the customer, right? Yep. Okay, back to order entry. It was the dates. Yeah.
Yeah. Just so you guys know, we're on a server that is in a
So
different
on the other
place.
side of the world.
Yeah.
So, and there's a good reason for that. All right. Anyway, all right. So we're gonna order 10,
Yeah.
and there's our price of $2.50. Came right over.
Now, if
from
you
the
go
contract.
to the prices tab, it shows you what contract it came from and what line on that contract. For some reason, if there was a question on where this came from, now you know where it is. Sometimes that screen works, sometimes it don't.
There was, I thought, like, I don't understand why display contract line info is not up, unless we have to enter through the line. Nope. It's like, to me, that should be working.
Yeah, well. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
Well, I wonder if
why did that not fill in? That's interesting.
if that contract has to be filled in. Let's try that and just see if that makes a difference.
Oh, like go ahead and pre-populate the contract number in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this too. I don't know if you've ever used this, but you can actually right click and get a list of all the items on the contract
Oh, that's cool.
and then drop them in. Like you could just, drop them in as you
Kind
need
of
them.
like the search.
Yeah, like the quick order
items.
pad thing. Yeah. So I like that. But display contract line info is still not there. There must be something more to it that.
It's probably something with it. It's not just specific that contract line. It's some kind of specific information that we're not using. Maybe it's a consignment. thing.
That could actually be it for sure. But I do like that.
So the create contract button there, and then there's a create price page one, or there isn't some. Oh, that's on when you're. I've never been able to get those to actually do anything of function. But I guess you can create your own, which seems kind of like not a great way to manage that.
Yeah, it seems like things could get lost there, but let's just go through it. I mean, we were going to create another contract anyway.
Yep. Nope, call it test 2.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
End date. And you notice the start date's grayed out because it's based on.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Change to a different pricing.
All right.
Now the question is, so if you had multiple lines, would it allow you to?
I mean, I would assume so. Now, okay, I'm going to reserve judgment on this. No, I'm not. That's great if you're just doing a price contract. But if you're having to do bins and all of that, I would not go down that road to do that. There's not enough detail. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
look what it did.
It jumped the price to what? But it didn't change the contract here.
What's the price tab say?
Oh, dude, this is bizarre. So, like, it doesn't tell me which contract this is.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of some of these features where they create it on the fly. That's just me. So let's put another order in now that you created another job contract.
Maybe it'll actually work. Huh? I get the feeling we're about to regret not going and looking at the contract first.
But... Oh, no, I'm not regretting it at all. I have all the faith in the world. All right, so this is what happens when you have multiple contracts with the same item. Oh, look at that. So Oh no, okay.
No, they're
It did
both
say
they're
they're
both
priced.
price.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, they're both priced.
This one's just got the
I
defaults in
just
it.
see, to me that should be just cleared out. Like it shouldn't.
Shouldn't even exist. Yeah,
No.
I don't disagree.
But yeah, so like you said, it works if it's like your most vanilla price-based line contract. If you're trying to do consignment, if you're trying to do
Anything with any complexity at all. Yeah,
you need to go create it in, or have somebody help you create something that captures all those complexities.
Who would do something like that?
I don't know. But essentially, it's going to show you, hey, you have multiple contracts. You need to pick one. And so you click on it and then click OK. And that's what it brings over once you put a quantity on.
Okay.
That's it.
So I'm going to save this and let's go back. And I don't think we necessarily have to invoice them, but we may end up coming back and doing that anyway.
Well, there is a way you can see quantity order.
Right, and that's kind of what I was driving at. I'm going to bring the bottom of my screen up just a touch there. Yeah, quantity ordered 20. And then our quantity invoiced is still 0.
Mm-hmm.
And then we should have some quantity on the other contract.
Quantity order 10.
Yep.
Now, you'll notice what this did, though. It did leave a corporate address ID in there.
Well, I mean, I guess if you're creating the contract from the order, I get it. Question is, can you wipe it out? Yeah, you could wipe it out.
What, wipe it out and save it, though. Because I think once you save it after you wiped it out, I don't think you can go back and put it. Oh.
It was trying to save it as a new one.
Yeah. So once you saved it with the corporate ID in there,
it is there.
It's there. That's interesting. Now, I'm going to say, I think it just really depends on your business, right? Like if you're creating these for a customer, then the corporate address ID is fine. But if you're creating this for a process, or like, hey, every VMI customer we set up for this is the pricing we're using for these 10 items. You obviously wouldn't put a corporate address ID in there. You would put that information in the customer ship to tab. So it's just a matter of how you're using it.
Yeah. Well, while we're in here, you'll notice that, like, if you're trying to go the VMI route, we don't really you can't get to those tabs. And the reason for that is because in order to get to the bin tab, you need to select which ship to you're talking about, right? So you would actually need to key that ship to, or you could do the lookup. And now your item bin and your bin tabs and all of that start to light up, and you can do more with it. So you're gonna want hello. Oh, there we go. You're going to want a unique bin ID when you're dealing with contract bins. If you're using this, I'm assuming that you're going to use the vendor managed inventory app from Epicor. If you're not, you should be. But I don't want to go too deep in the weeds on that here, because this is about pricing. Maybe we'll do a whole thing on VMI. But this is where you're going to manage. These are not your bins. These are the bins at your customer location. And this is how you will scan and replenish off this contract. What else do we want to cover here, man?
Now, as far as the bin stuff, that is not. I was never exposed to that until I got here. The general concept of it, is fine. It's.
I mean,
it's like purchasing for their bins.
Well, okay, so get this. This is what's cool. Like, and there's different ways to set this up. And again, I think this probably warrants its own thing. Um, and I got to think about how we would actually display that app on camera. You know what I mean? Um, but in any event, I always wanted to set these things up to where it was like it's trainable, right? So the best way to set this up is you would say, okay, my bin, let's say we're putting flat washers in it. That bin can hold 500 of that washer. I want it to have at least 250. And then my reorder quantity is going to be whatever. You don't have to set any of those. You can manually key all of that as you're doing the replenishment. But what I like doing is setting up at least a reorder quantity and then training the person doing the VMI. When you see that bin is less than half full, scan it. Right? And you set the reorder quantity to be something a little less than half. So like if it can hold 500, I might set my reorder quantity to 200. That way I know when that person gets there and sees this bin is half full, all they have to do is scan it, and it's automatically going to go on the order with 200 units. And that's it. There's no other decision making required. It just works. I like that. I think it works really well. That's just me. But like I said, we could do a whole thing on that.
Yeah, and that custom that we did, we had the customer, they would enter their quote in, and so they would enter the quote in at the capacity, I think is what they did.
Yes, and then we split it and said, okay, then the min's going to be half of that, or a third of that. And the reorder quantity is going to be half. Or there was math behind how we did that. And then we also snagged the unique ID of the order line and made that the bin ID, which guaranteed us a unique bin ID across their entire system. So
yeah, and for those that don't know, like everything in P21, what you see, maybe necessarily not what we're talking about as far as ID goes. Like just because it's line 1 on a sales order, in P21 it may be line UID 357,000. Sure. Because each line is its own unique line number. So it just guaranteed that we would have a unique number.
Yep. Every time, and we'd never have to worry about having a conflict. So good stuff. All right, so we've gone through that. I guess we should probably let's just invoice this thing.
Yeah.
And we'll go back to our job contract. And I don't really remember which contract this was that order was off of, but we'll find out. It was not that one. It were the other one. Well, it's not on there either. Dude. It's not showing a quantity invoiced. I wonder if... Surely it doesn't have to go... Does it have to go through shipping to make that work? I wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't think so.
Well, the order shows complete. And it went off the first contract. So that's weird. Okay, well, fine. Let's do the other order. Let's see if there's a difference. I can't imagine that being the case.
No, it shouldn't matter that you have to go to... I mean, why would it matter if you have to go to... You're gonna go pick ticket and then go.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like a really bad.
I think we might be sliding into bug territory if that's the case.
Well, wait, remember one of those orders overrode, even though it still said it was coming from test contract 1, it really wasn't anymore because we did that create contract. No, but we saw that there was 20 on order. All right, well, I got nothing now.
All right, so let's see, let's clear this. Now, that one should have been on the second contract. Dude, it's not on there either.
That doesn't seem right. Oh, do you have to put a ship to in?
Oh, duh. Yes, I'm stupid. Thank you. No, that didn't make any difference whatsoever.
I got nothing for you, man. I got nothing for you. I have seen that work. I will just put that out there.
No, I have totally seen that work, and that's why, I mean, this was like kind of a slam dunk thing. That should, I mean, the only thing we haven't done is print the invoice, but I cannot imagine that that's it.
Give it a shot. I mean, I wouldn't put it past P21.
I'm probably going to regret hitting that wide open. Yeah, not too bad. Okay, so let's try this yet one more time. I'll even try the whole... That's so weird to me.
No.
That should be working.
Yeah, I got nothing for you, man. I don't know why that's not pulling up. It should be pulling up though.
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing we can do about it, but complain. All right, so that gets us through job contract, 2 hours in, 5 more minute break, and then we'll come back and dive into sales libraries.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, right? Like the shuttle's about to take off or something. Okay, so we're back, and now we're on to sales price libraries. And this is, I mean, look, this is powerful. There's a lot of different things you can do. And I think for me, like, it's one of the easiest things to make in the system to make so complicated you can't maintain it. I think that's the biggest thing that scares me about price libraries. I mean, they're a great feature. Don't get me wrong. They're very useful. They do a lot of different things, but I think you have to. I think in your business you have to look at it and say there's some lines that we're not willing to cross here because the opportunity to create a maintenance nightmare or to, for wrong pricing to get out there, it's just too high. I know back in the day, and this is 7 or 8 years ago, like even Epicore's online training advised you to make very limited use of item-based price pages because they have a tendency to make the system run slower, which makes sense when you think about it. Now, I would say from a compute standpoint, we've probably overcome that mostly. There's enough computing power out there that's probably not as big of a deal, but it's certainly, I still think, is a thing. But I think there's an even bigger issue than that, and that is, like, that means you're going to have exponentially more pages that you're going to have to maintain. So when we're consulting with clients about implementing pricing in P21, we talk a lot about, like, okay, is this an opportunity for us to kind of take the wild west out of the way that you're doing things today and try to streamline it and simplify it so that you have fewer things to maintain? Matt, what's your experience with that, dude?
Yeah, the way I look at it is there's already a great pricing system in for individual items, and that's job contracts.
Yeah.
Job contracts, and I didn't say it before in there, one of my downsides with job contracts is I can't do what I can do in a price page where I can say, hey, this sales product or this purchase product group, I want all these items to come from price 3. You can do that with price pages, and that's what so my recommendation is if you're talking about individual items, it's much easier to manage one job contract with 100 items on it than to manage 100 price pages of individual items. It's just multiplied times 100 customers, you're now at 1,000, and that's being conservative. You're at 1,000 pages, or no, you're at 10,000 pages, or whatever the math is. So that's my recommendation. Job contract is very useful for lots of things, but specifically item-based pricing or individual item pricing. Price library should be for more, and pages in that aspect should be more for more broad groups of items or supplier-specific items, or there's a bunch. We'll go through all that in the price pages. There's different ways. To me, I don't think price pages for an item make any sense at all. Unless it's a random, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it implemented. I've seen it where, like, people have 100,000 price pages, and I'm like, I don't even understand how you begin to manage this, but they do it. Well, let's just take it from the top, Matt. You want to walk us through sort of the whole hierarchy?
Well, there's a couple of ways you can look at it, because you can do price libraries without books and pages.
Okay. So let's just do that. Well, I mean, let's make it simple, right?
And then we can go into the price page, which will go into a different library, which would be the ones that uses books, and we'll give you some tips and stuff on that. All right. So you give it an ID, you give it a name, and then you have to pick the type. And also, hold on, make it make sense. Like, don't just arbitrary, because you potentially could take this library and assign it to multiple customers, or it may be a customer. So whatever your naming convention is,
make
it make sense.
Yeah. So, like in this case, we might say, instead of Molt 1, let's try to make a little bit more sense. Let's say,
Yeah, this screen gets real funky. Yeah. There you go.
something like that, you know. So
Yep.
all right, so then we have to select the type, and your options are first of, highest of, lowest of, multiplier, newest of, oldest of. Well, now this is a multiplier based one, so we're going to just go with multiplier. We'll come back to the other ones.
Yeah. Multiplier, the ofs only apply to books and
Yep.
pages.
Okay, so if we pick multiplier, we have to pick a source. All those same options are there, except funny enough, prices 6 through 10 are in this list, Matt.
So really the only thing that blocks you from doing is an item maintenance at the location.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Hey, you know. And then we said this was going to be times 1.5, so we're going to put that in there and save it. And that's it. That's as simple as it gets. We now have a library that's going to take price 1, multiply it by 1.5, and that's how it's going to work. So if we wanted to assign this to a customer, we would first put in the correct customer ID.
You already made one mistake. There you go.
Wasn't done yet. And notice we can still opt to use both price libraries and job contract pricing.
Right.
You know, they don't they don't cancel each other out. They can be used in tandem.
And it's just job contract comes first.
Right.
So if an item lives on a job contract, it doesn't care what library settings you have set up for that.
Correct, because the job contract will hit first.
Yeah. Now, if you pull this back up, it will show you what customers this library is assigned to and what ship tos, if there were ship tos that it was assigned to.
That's nice.
So if you ever want to know, so if you create a generic, pricing library and you want to know, okay, which customers carry this, boom, here's your list. You know who you need to deal with.
Yep. Okay. So that's like in its most basic form, and you can also get a list of, using the list view, you can get a list of your active libraries or of all your libraries, active or no. All right, so that's about as simple as that gets, right? Now let's go from there. What do we want to do next?
First, we need to create a page before we come back in.
Can we not create it from here?
No, I don't believe so. Can you create one from there?
I thought you could now, but I could be wrong.
It looks like you can. All right,
let's try it that way. Yeah. Okay. So this is going to be what are we going to call this library?
Let's call it Price 2 Library. I don't know.
Good with that.
Whatever you call it. Okay. When I said it had to make sense, I didn't mean for us. I meant when you're actually doing business. This is just fun.
Look, the best way that I have personally implemented this is I had a library and look, there are as many ways to implement this as there are people, right? I mean, I've seen so many derivatives of how to implement libraries, but typically what we would do is we would say, your customers would be stratified somehow. A customers, B customers, C customers, distributors, resellers, general public, retail, whatever. And then your price libraries would be set up around those stratifications. The idea being you want that library to hit as many different customers as possible so that you only have to maintain data in the fewest places possible, and it automatically blows out to everyone else.
Right. So you could, in my experience, we did that too, where you had job contracts for very specific pricing for items for customers, but then we had a bulk library that would capture price 1.
Yeah.
But then we may create a customer specific library that has some, in these 10 categories, they get better pricing.
All right, so this is going to be, now we get into the choices, which I know you can't see them, but they are first of, highest of, lowest of, newest of, or oldest of. So this is saying if I, inside of a single library, if I can price the same item more than once, and you say, well, how could that be? Well, you may have a product group based page that would price item A. Then you might have a discount group based page and there's overlap there. And then you might have an item based page. You might have 3 or 4 different ways to price that item. So what you have to say is, in this library, however it all gets priced out, either take the first one you find, the highest one, the lowest one, the newest price, or the oldest price. All right. Most of the time I see people using first, highest, or lowest. We'll just set it to first and try not to duplicate. And now we have to create books and pages. So Matt, you want to walk through that?
So we have to go back to the book page. Now this is different than if you did watch any of our supplier stuff where you had to go into book maintenance to create the book, which you can do. You can do that directly from the screen, so you don't have to leave the library screen. And I guess maybe it does work for pages too, which is new for me. Again, make your naming convention make sense. In my previous world, we called since we didn't have multiple books in our libraries, we just had, I wish you could just put pages straight into a library. Like,
yeah,
I understand what they're trying to do, but we always made, because your price library ID can be the same exact ID as your book ID.
Yeah.
And so we did that just so no matter where we were looking at reporting wise, it all
made sense. Yeah.
And so now he has now created the book, and now we can create so this is the part that I don't know. I've never made one from in here. I don't know if you can, because the price ID is not something you create. That's a generated P21 function.
Okay, so let's say sales disc D.
Yes, yeah. I didn't think.
Yeah, no, yeah. We actually have to create it.
Now you can save it without any pages in it, so you go ahead and hit save. I don't think you have to have a page in it. Oh, you just they broke something up,
dude.
All right, maybe you can't.
All right, let's try to not be so overzealous this time.
Well, I would like to point out that
that it was your idea. Yeah, I know, but I forgive you.
I said let's go price pages first. So let's leave this screen. We're not going to be in here. Nope.
I just want to see if it saved anything. No, it didn't.
Nope.
All right.
So lesson is create your pages first. And I believe you can do, obviously there's imports for price pages.
Yes.
Right. Isn't there an import?
Yeah, there was. Those the first 2 menu items.
Okay.
Were.
And can you make them? I don't remember if you can mass update price pages.
Yes, you can.
You
can.
Okay.
Yeah, we've helped people do that before.
Okay.
Okay, so this is going to be sales discount group D.
And the group?
Yeah.
This is one of the things that frustrates me about P21 sometimes. It doesn't specifically tell you when you're supposed to create the ID or when the system will generate the ID. In price pages, it's going to generate an ID for it. In other instances, like price library, we have to give it the ID.
Yeah.
Whatever.
All right. So the price type, since we're going to do this based on a discount group D, is going to be discount group. And then the calculator type, are we using this to calculate cost, price, or both? I'm going to set this to price. And it defaults to 12/31/2049. So by default, if you don't change the date, it's going to be essentially forever.
To the end of time, according
to the end of SQL's time, at least. All right. And then it's just, how do you want to price this? And so let's say it's going to be 2 times cost. Right. And then totaling method. Now the totaling gets into price breaks, I believe, is where that comes into play. I've actually not ever really messed with that much, but you can total across an item, a discount group. I don't even know what a major group is.
Order, product group.
Yeah.
supplier.
And supplier.
I've mostly used, and this goes back to what we were saying before in item maintenance, where there are groups, price discount group, sales discount group, purchase group, price libraries, product groups. This is where they really come into play, is you can utilize those to do these different pages.
Yeah.
So if you make them all the same, like if you just create, like in this one, they're all D, you're not getting
that much mileage out of it. Yeah.
Right. And your price family doesn't have to necessarily match your product group. They could be different things. A price family can be a more broad group of items, maybe. Product group can be a subset within that item, set of items. So, again, plan it out on paper first. Spend the time up front. Make a plan. Measure twice. Cut once.
I like it. All right. All right. And then the next main tab that you would use are the values. And so this, again, we're going to keep it simple here, at least at first, and not get into quantity price breaks just yet. But here, this is your calculation value. And then you could say it's a difference, it's a fixed price, it's a markup, it's a multiplier, it's a percentage. I'm just going to keep it simple and stick with multiplier. And we're just going to say this is going to be 2 times average cost. And so for anything in sales discount group D, which is everything. This should be pricing at 2 times cost.
Right.
All right.
Unless that item is on a
job contract.
Job contract.
Mm-hmm.
Did we go? We did breaks when we were talking about purchasing pages.
Yes.
There was nothing else on that front tab we need to look at, was there?
I
totaling.
think so. We can go back in and retrieve it.
Contract number is just information. Source, totaling method, totaling basis, active, obviously.
Yeah, now this stuff down here in this gap is going to change,
right,
depending on how you set the price type. So it just kind of message retracted. That's a new one. But yeah, that's basically it. Okay. Then we're going to put this in a librarian book. Yeah.
Yep. So again, create your pages first.
I hate that.
I thought you were going to teach me something new. I was all excited. I was like, oh wow, I didn't know you could do that.
I gotta be honest with you. I mean, I know this is like I'm complaining into the void here, and I totally understand that. This was so much better in the desktop because you could drag and drop stuff, and it was a really nice UI. I mean, it wasn't really nice, but it was very functional.
Yeah.
And this has always seemed clunky to me.
It's not as clunky as the supplier or the supplier pricing was. Good Lord.
Hey, look at that.
Hey, look at that.
All right, I'm saving it now. Okay, so now we'll go back to it and just kind of see what we ended up with. All right. It's not assigned to any customers, so that's something to be aware of. You still do have to go out and assign it. All right, so we'll go back to our little test customer.
Now, I always like to when I describe people this sales pricing tab, it's like it goes down. So it starts at our pricing method, which obviously is libraries. If it was multiplier, I guess that's not true when it's multiplier.
No.
But it goes to the job contract stuff first, then it gets to our libraries, and then within your libraries, that order matters.
Yes. So it's going to process, and again, when you're talking about system performance and data maintainability, it may seem like a good idea to have 300 price libraries, but it only seems that way. You know, I get you get into high scale situations, maybe there's no way around it, but you know, I know it's a painful thing to contemplate, because you know, we get into business, we work with our customers. As businesses, we're used to dealing with our customers in a certain way, but if you're on this system, always take the opportunity to see, is there a way that we can simplify, and condense the way we do things. Yes, it means we have to interact with our customers a little bit differently, but over the long haul, the customer gets better service because you're not wasting your time being a data monkey, basically.
Right. Yeah. I mean, sometimes we preach about how important just 1 or 2 points can be on a bottom line, but if you have to spend hours and hours and hours maintaining hundreds of libraries and pages and books, you're eating that 1 or 2 points up anyways.
Yeah.
But it does it now, unlike within the library, which is set up to first of and all that, if it finds in that first library, that's where it stops.
Unless you check this little checkbox right here.
Right.
Yeah.
But my method of thinking is I want to put my best deal at the top and then the worst deal at the bottom. And you can't drag and drop it. You have to use the move up or move down buttons over there.
I am.
Or you have to change the sequence number manually.
But I want to drag and drop it because I should be able to drag and drop it.
You should be able to, because there's other parts of P21 you can drag and drop. But anyways.
All right.
Now, I want to do an order and show you one of my last problems. And it can be very specific to... It doesn't drag and drop.
I know. It just bothers me. I'm sorry.
It just doesn't. You can manually type in those sequence numbers, or you can click the move up and down.
It should work.
All
right.
So one of the failings for me when it comes to price libraries is, so I think it's important to know how I got to a certain price.
Yeah.
And that stupid warn. You were going to want to turn that off if it was a real person. So if you go to the price tab, now if you remember when we looked at the job contract, it told us came off of contract X on page or line 1, right? However many lines. This one gives you that somewhat, but it only gives you the page.
There's another way to get there.
Well, we had to get, and again, we contacted a very reputable company called Atlas Consulting because it was important to our business. Like, we needed to know, did this come from, because we use libraries as like customer level, industry specific, whatever they were. So we would know, okay, yeah, this is price, page, blah, but where did it come from?
Right.
And P21, once it hits the line, it forgets it. So you have to kind of interrupt it. And I don't remember what black magic that Andy and the wonderful crew at Atlas Consulting did. But we were able to start capturing that data because it was important for our business. Maybe it's not important for your business. Maybe you don't care. Maybe as long as you know what price page it came from, that's enough for you.
Well, and it got funky with that solution because you started getting into the concept of people changing quantities, editing prices. I mean, it was not easy, and right. It took us a while to figure out how we could intercept the data. And it was a good project because, I mean, if you're going to have all these price pages, like the first thing that they would be able to know is how many of them are actually getting used. You know, that to me would be valuable to know. However, if you want to go a little, deeper and kind of get inside the mind, as it were, you do have the option to go to sales price inquiry and do the same. Key that item in and go over to pricing details. I don't like that at all. That doesn't make me happy.
We need to turn off express pricing for this purpose.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Again, to me, it goes back to if you have to have something set up to see how well express pricing is performing, I'm not a fan. Just say. Now, it is taking a couple extra seconds to run it through the SQL pricing.
Yeah, it is, but I want to be clear. Number one, this is a crappy server. Number two, it's not an actively used database, so there's no database cache being built up.
Right.
There's a lot of reasons why it's going to be bad performance on this. So I wouldn't let this experience drive your... Oh, see, yeah, this is much better. So this is actually telling us everything we want to know, and what was evaluated but not selected, what was selected.
But my issue with it, like, you can still, but my point is, yes, if you did it the same time, but what if it happened 2 months ago?
For sure. No, absolutely. I just wanted to bring this screen up because a lot of people don't even know it's there. And if you're trying to diagnose pricing problems, it's a great way to do it.
Like if you're like, why does it keep coming up with 283? You can go in there and put it in there and say, this is exactly why it's coming up with 283.
Right. And so it's telling you which page, but let me just go back to it right quick. It's even giving you more than that.
Wait, isn't that a contract?
It is. I wanted to just show how that worked.
But it didn't pull the contract.
No, this one's not. The other item I put on is. So stand by. But you see, this is telling us there's that average cost. And I mean, you're able to work right back to it and figure it out. This item,
it didn't though. Look at the pricing that it came.
We did not put a contract number in.
Oh, so you have to put a contract number in, even though you have use all contracts. That's very poorly thought out. Just saying. I mean, if I have my customer set up to use all contracts,
you would think it would use them. Let's see.
So now you have to go put test one.
Mm-hmm. Huh?
Eh?
I might have had a space in it. I don't remember. But no. Oh, wait. Whatever. Okay, fine. I don't even want to. This is fine. Now you get your 250, and you can see that it's being priced by contract. Yeah.
But it doesn't even look. It doesn't even tell you what line it came off of. But from the sales order, it'll tell you what line of the contract, but it won't tell you what book and library it came from.
Okay, legit. I still am put off about the express pricing thing. I mean, like, just to blanketly say, "Oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's done by express."
All right, let's go back to.
Well, now I want to see that other screen.
What other one?
Express pricing comparison. Too many zeros. Still too many. Oh, it's not. Ugh. This is starting to sting a little, bro.
Well, I do have a couple more things I want to get back to. On order
I
entry
know,
at
but
some
I'm
point.
going down this rabbit trail, and I'm going all the way down it. Oh my gosh.
To me, oh no. You have to right click and apply, or
No idea. Oh, no, there it is.
now the downside is this probably takes an hour to run
Oh my gosh, I didn't
for your
think of
for your.
Oh, well, no worries. Everything's cool. It's just a.
Mhm.
You know what? We'll just. There we go.
Mhm.
See, we'll just make that go away.
Yeah, go turn express pricing back off for this customer, please.
You seem very like not a fan of it. I'm just saying. You're
it's-
exuding that a little bit.
It's up there with velocity and average lead time.
Okay. So we're back to like a normal world now. So where are we going here?
One thing I want to, so let's just edit the price, make it like really cheap. Which that didn't do what I wanted to do, but that's fine. I thought the warning might pop up.
I don't think we have them turned on.
Okay, that's fine. Now, but go to the prices tab. We've covered this, I think, in some other calls, but it's important to note that if you're looking at a pricing, it doesn't make sense. It does tell you that it was edited. Just wanted to, as a reminder on that. Go to the cost tab. This was the feature that we had turned on to allow them to see profit. So it shows up here. You can see all your profits for those individual lines.
Mhm.
If we had turned that off, they wouldn't even see the cost tab.
Right. Yeah. The whole tab
right.
just doesn't display.
But if you go back to the line detail, it shows you the profit percentage on there as well.
Yeah. It's right here.
And I believe if you type in what you want that profit percent to be, it will adjust the cost price, unit price. So to me, that's a problem. If you don't really want people doing that, you have two options: the user setting that we talked about, or you leave it on here for visual, but protect it with Dyna changes.
Yeah,
or
look,
whatever.
and there's something else worth mentioning here, because when you start talking about system customizations, like we get into a lot of situations where people are like, oh yeah, we want you to do X when the price changes. Well, you got to put that in like 6 places on this screen,
Right.
to make all of that work, because there's so many ways that you can affect that price. So that's just something to think about. And then there was one other thing too that came to mind.
Can you add one more while you're thinking? Can you add one more line onto this order?
Yeah.
Because I want to. My other problem that even if you turn off the cost tab, there's still a way to manipulate. I believe it's still. Oh God, you should really turn that off.
I was too busy turning off express pricing.
All right, so let's go to the totals tab at the top. You can come in here and say, hey, this whole order, maybe you wouldn't have access to that if we turn those settings off. I don't remember. But there's that profit percent up there you can change, and it'll just even out and change everything on that order. Which is interesting that it didn't go to a full 60. It went to like 59.98 and 59.97.
Yeah, it seems like you would round up.
Yeah. But just keep that in mind that
There's
and maybe that's not there if you have the user setting turned off. I don't remember.
what happens if I do this
Oh yeah, it just automatically changes the unit pricing.
and just spreads it across everything.
Now there is some intelligence to it, like it just doesn't take and divide it evenly. It looks at like if an
What
item,
percentage are we going up between the
Right.
current subtotal?
right? So
and
if you
the
have
new
a dollar
subtotal.
item, $100 item, they won't get increased. They'll get increased the same
Percentage. Yeah.
to capture that subtotal.
I mean, that makes sense.
Now again, if your business is okay with that, just keep in mind it's there. So
I remember what I was going to talk about earlier. So, for those of you that are looking for the data aspects of this and tracking and traceability, in the database, and you can kind of change it onto the screen too, but in the database there is a field on the order line called System Calc Unit Price. That is the original price that the price engine suggested. So even when you see the edited checkbox that Matt was talking about earlier down here, it is also like P21 is always saving that original price that it suggested, so that you can have that as a reference. I'll be honest with you, as a manager, I've used that to see who's reducing price. I mean, really. Now, again, going back to what I was talking about when we first started this conversation, I deeply feel that selecting a sell price is extremely important. That's just, to me, it's just a mission critical decision that a business makes. We have been in situations with customers where we have built business rules that expressly prohibit the editing of a price, or you can do it, but you're going to have to give a reason why you're doing it, and that's going to be logged. And only certain people even had access to that. The rest of them just couldn't do it at all. But what that would do would keep their price strategy under control. And to me, I think stuff like that is valuable in an organization, because especially as employees turn over, it's really hard as your organization gets larger, or as you cycle through employees, to keep a consistent execution if it's all being done, by, well, hey, just price it this way or do this, or you can give a little bit of a break. Those types of things, they get out of control really fast. At least in my experience, they do. You still there, Matt, or did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Okay, cool. I was trying to think what else on here. I mean, what else do we want to talk about as far as... Well, actually, what we can do is demonstrate a couple of things. Go ahead.
You're talking about previous sales or previous...
Yeah, previous requests. That's one. The other thing I think we can do here is we got a... well, this is not valid. Let's start over clean. I just want to illustrate what happens as we reorder those libraries. Yeah. All right, so going with the current lineup.
So when you go change those libraries around,
I know, I'll change it.
At least turn that off.
$2.83. So that's the 2 times cost, right? Because we have a 50% margin. All right. So now
you need to make sure this item actually has a price 1 set up.
Yeah. Good call. Let's do that first.
I'm full of those. No comment?
No, not at the moment. I'm thinking about it.
Kind of hurts.
All right. Let's see. All right. Customer. And you said leave that checked, and then I can drag and drop these, right? All right. Okay. We'll turn the prompt off. And we're going to move this up. Save.
We were at what, 283 originally?
Yes. Now we should be at like $9. Look at that, $9. Some other things here too. Just when I was talking earlier about you have the ability, or we had the customer that they set all those different prices as kind of brackets for guidance. I mean, right click display price levels, you get a lot of good information.
You can also select and update it. So
yeah, absolutely.
If you did have a price too, you could do that.
Yeah, you could just say, hey, I'm going to use price 3 for this order and hit OK, and away you go. We don't really want to sell this for nothing. So
now something, when you edit a price, and then even if you edit it back to what it was calculated to, I don't believe it erases the edit flag.
No, it doesn't. Once it's been touched at all, it has been touched for forevermore. Yeah.
And you can see, even though he put it back to the $9, it doesn't have any recollection of it being generated from a price page.
Yeah. Now, all that said, that system calc unit price is still sitting there at $9. Right. So you would be able to tell, in theory, that someone edited it, but they edited it at least twice to get it back to what it originally was. You said previous requests we wanted to look at, right?
Yep. And this is where that since he was on a line, it brought in that item.
Yep. But let's do it. If I go down here, right?
Yeah, it shouldn't. It should just come in without an item. Nope, still selected it. That's
we'll
weird.
Just get rid of it.
Oh, you probably have to add a new blank line.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then right click from
yeah.
that. Did the date not come in there? That was interesting.
Well, I think we had it at 0 days, so it does.
We did. You're right.
Filter. Yeah.
Okay, you're right. So this is where we were talking about where now. Here's something important to keep in mind. It will only, on this tab, it shows you the results, basically the last price for that item.
Mm-hmm.
But if you highlight on that item and then go to query details, it will show you all of the last transactions for that item.
Right.
So the summary is your most recent pricing for that item for that customer. If you wanted to dive deeper into that item and find all the pricing and figure out what you want, you would just be on the item, go into details.
I really like the fact that you can see the history of margin. I mean, that to me is powerful and very useful.
And this will pull back, because we didn't do any, there are settings on that query. We can say only look at quotes, only look at orders. But when it was wide open, this is going to pull back every open order, every invoiced order. I might bring back canceled orders now I think about it. It brings in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So just be mindful.
It does tell you whether it was a quote or not, whether it's approved or not. So,
and maybe it doesn't bring them back if they're deleted, but it does. It can be open.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. This isn't just invoices. This is just anytime this item has been priced, essentially. So if we go back, well, we could do it from, oh no, what'd you do?
Well, I was just showing that when I went back and added an item that was on a contract, I'm getting that same prompt even from previous requests.
But did you check recalculate
I did.
When you did that?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you hadn't checked recalculate, it would have just brought that price in without running through the pricing engine again. So what it did was it went, oh, well, he wants us to recalculate it. Oh, we hit 2 job contracts. So if you come back and grab that same item and just check the box without recalculating, it should bring it back for that price without asking. It's not.
It still does.
That's not what it's supposed to do. Because it's not supposed to recalculate the pricing.
Maybe if we were prompting for non-contract items, it would work correctly.
Maybe. Well, that seems counterproductive since we didn't check the recalculate box, but maybe job contracts are outside of...
I could see that. I mean, I could definitely see that being the case because it's not really a calculation so much as it is, hey, this is what you're contractually obligated to.
I guess that makes sense because it's kind of like express pricing where it was like, we still go through job contracts. We still go through what was the other thing that it was on that chart? It was
Last
job,
margin pricing.
last margin price. Then I guess that's when it goes to sequel. So I guess job contracts supersede.
Yeah.
That
I mean,
recalculate button.
that would be, that's something I think probably worth demoing too, is last margin pricing.
Yeah.
So we should probably do that too. We'll do that under a different customer account. So we've been through what happens when you shuffle around the libraries. We've been through job contract exhaustively. What else do we want to go through?
I mean, I'd say we'll do the last margin thing, then maybe we can kind of touch a little bit, and we won't go deep into it, but just kind of remind people the ways to try to maintain some of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and we've got time. We should
work
probably
around.
talk about quantity price breaks too. I mean,
Yeah.
That would be worth going into as well. Okay.
Well, you want to do that before we get into Mart? Because I think the margin one's going to be a little bit more.
Yeah, we have to unravel stuff to make that work.
Yeah.
So let's do that. All right. So if we go back into
Our price page.
can we get okay, so I know we can do it from here, but is it possible to open it from sales price library maintenance?
Go to the price page.
Because I feel like it should be. I'm just going to kind of start from scratch here.
I don't know if it's one of those magical drill downs that takes you to a screen where you can't do anything. Not that those ever exist.
Right,
Is that the one that's first now? I don't think that's the one that's first.
No,
I
but we
think
can fix it. Okay, so then we go to price page. Yeah, it's got a link. Okay,
there you go.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
cool. That should be
Everywhere in P21 should do that.
always. All right, so okay, this is where I always get messed up.
The break is on the first line, remember?
Is it?
Yeah, that's what we ran into.
Okay.
We did it on the second line. The break is on the first line. And if you leave that 0, there is no more breaks.
Do I
I see
have?
what you're doing.
Oh,
I see
okay.
what you're doing.
So like this is what I should be doing.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
The 0 is where your brakes stop.
All right. That's just yeah. Okay. I don't.
Totally intuitive.
You have to think about it as you're getting this price up to this quantity.
Right.
Right.
It's not. Basically, my brain goes, well, there is no price break for this until I get to 10, which is the next line.
Which
that's
is
not
this price. I mean that.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, what it's doing is, hey, give this price until you get to this number, then you move down to the next value until this number, then you move down. But then the interesting part is there is no ceiling on it, so it should stay at whatever. If you guys really want us to try to explain why they do things in P21,
Yeah, that's we'll need a 12-hour live stream, and we won't have an answer at the end.
I'll need a new job after that.
All
Just
right,
kidding.
let's see. So let's take our. All right, I'm going to start with 1,
Right.
and there's our $2.83, and so it's gonna. So see, it's telling me right here that I'm going to get $2.13 at quantity
At
10.
Yep.
And sure enough, it automatically goes down to 213. And then I should now see an even better price at $1.77 for going to 100.
And go back to the line. If you right click on the line, I believe you can see the price breaks.
Yep.
So this shows you basically what we were seeing.
Yep.
And it even shows you what the pricing is next to it. I don't think you can select some. I think this is just a.
Yeah, it's informational. It is strictly informational. But I really do like that because this is your opportunity to upsell your customers, right? And say, hey, look, if you buy 10, I can give it to you for $1.50. And
No, 213.
213. Yep, my bad. Yeah, don't.
I do like that it actually has the pricing there too. I was worried it was just going to show me
The calc value, yeah.
the calc value. So the fact that it has the pricing, it just prevents you from having to jump back and forth to the pricing tab. You can just do it all straight from there.
Let's try to see, and then
Price levels is price sheet.
it's just
1,
that.
2.
Yep. So that's fine. Was there anything else on the right mouse button that would help us out? I don't really think so.
No. Again, I'm not a big fan of create contracts.
No, we
From
went
that.
through that, and it's okay. All right. So we did that. Where were we going next?
Well, I think that's really the.
Oh, we were gonna do the last margin thing.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else on. Again, this price page, we did it as. What sort? We just did it price product group. This still pertains to if you changed it to supplier product group. Can you just show how like the options change down at the bottom?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you could come in here and say, okay, this is, oops. So we're gonna apply this pricing to everything for Black & Decker. See, to me, I like if you're into these types of product lines, again, where you're in a situation where you say, we buy at 0.5 and sell at 0.7. You know, I get it. There's a lot of nuance there, but generally speaking, if you could do that and say, okay, well, we'll just set that for anything for this supplier. That means every time you update supplier list or whatever, all of this is just going to work. And you can even get a little deeper into it and say, well, for this supplier in this product group, or this supplier in this discount group, or, you know, manufacturing class is in there, price family is in there. There's a lot of different options for you to manipulate that. And
yeah, the combo one's my favorite just because the supplier is already set, right? You already have a supplier for this item. Now, obviously, it's going to base it off of when you're first entering an order, it should base it off of your primary supplier for that item for that location, right?
right.
Now, I don't know if you go to the extended info and change the supplier. I don't know if that picks that up or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
That's interesting.
But that might be in the weeds.
Pretty far. All right. Let's go to last margin then. I think I just, a lot of this stuff, yeah, this is all for commissions and all that good stuff. So, oh, can you assign these to individual locations as well?
Yeah, I'm guessing so. But which location ID is that? Is that sales location? Or is
It
that-
would have to be. Yeah, it would have to be sales location.
Well, I don't know. Job contracts is source location.
I'm betting sales location. All right, so let's pick a different customer.
Do we have a customer that we can use?
I actually may have to log out and log back in. Yeah, I'm gonna have to log out and back in because we changed the system setting, but
Oh, yeah, we didn't.
yeah. All right, 1 second. We'll get that done. Spare you guys the pain of all these log out messages.
I don't know. You made our faces bigger.
I know, because I'm sparing you the pain of all the log out messages.
It's just substituting a pain. I feel like Tuesdays I don't move at all.
It's because you don't. It's like it's like just being on a plane, right?
Well,
You just-
and we may like we do a big. We have our team call before this,
yeah,
and so we literally roll in from a team call, maybe grab a quick bite to eat, straight into this, and then for some reason we decide it's a good idea to put a customer call
right
after this.
Absolutely. All right, so let's see here. Don't tell me I didn't.
Did you know? No, you didn't save the settings in supplier or system
Dude,
settings.
seriously?
Yeah. That's not how that
Yeah,
works.
that's not good at all. All right.
Well, we'll show you guys how to set it up.
There you go.
Again.
What was I thinking?
I stopped thinking about 3 hours ago.
Yeah, it's because I'm getting hungry, man. Where'd it go? I'm totally... Oh, there we go. So this just says, is it going to be based on quotes as well? All right, we're just going to go with that.
Hey, you need to log out and log back in.
Mm-hmm.
Is it raining out your way?
I don't know. I've got the blinds are shut, so it could be.
It's been threatening to rain today, and you generally get the rain before we do.
All right, we're back. Let's try this again.
Hey, look at that. You can turn that on.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to roll with this, just as is. The only thing I'm going to change is this. Average cost, and we'll set this to ×2. All right. Okay, so I'm assuming, yeah, I got this unit price because it's never been sold before. So I'm going to set this to 40%. And save it. And then let's do it again.
Too many zeros.
Yep.
Do you have to right click and up? Is there something to right click on it?
Shouldn't be.
So what is it? Is it doing the multiplier?
Well, so that time it just took me right back to the 50%. I would have expected it to go to 40.
Can you go to the prices tab?
Oops. It's still pricing based on the multiplier.
Yep.
All right, let's do this. I may be wrong on this. Maybe it's manual. Oh, wait. The answer may be in the question. It does say gross profit percentage of last invoice.
Oh, for this customer, where our general saying.
Well, we didn't invoice it, so.
Well, but
and this customer may not
have
any invoices, for all I know.
Yeah, but I'm confused because it said in the options and system settings it would allow quotes, which obviously aren't tied to invoices. So would that mean invoices and quotes?
Possibly. Sounds reasonable. So we'll invoice this.
What if you... Oh, too late. I was going to say, what if you created a quote? I wanted to see if it... But now you already have an invoice. I guess we can do a quote after.
That worked out well. No, I can't even change the item. Well,
What is going on?
okay, see there, it came back.
What happened with the other item?
Well, this one probably doesn't have a supplier price.
Oh.
So, okay, so like it's 1904, right? So if I go in and invoice this, and I hit that item again, ostensibly it should come back at 19%.
I don't like that feature at all.
I tell you, I just think it leaves a lot of room for things to get really out of whack really quick. There it is. See? And then...
So create a quote for me, because I want to see, because the fact that quote was an option in customer or company maintenance, to me that seems like the invoice makes sense to me. The quote doesn't make sense to me. And that's what that option said, right? Am I
Well, no, I've never really messed with it, so we're gonna find out real quick. Like, $62.94%. Yeah.
Interesting.
So either the last thing you invoiced it at or the last thing you quoted it at. But interestingly, like, here's the hole that I see. What if you order it more than once before I ship it to you the first time? That's not going to work right. You know?
I see that being very, I don't know. That feels like it's a very specific. Like I don't see that as a. To me, there's easier ways of doing that with multiplier or percentage or.
Look,
Well, I guess because maybe multiplier doesn't, multiplier doesn't equal percentage. No, I don't like it.
fundamentally, I'm not big on like the basis of pricing being a markup from cost. It's the easiest way to lose margin in my experience. That's not to say that there aren't companies that don't do it well or can't do it well or whatever. I mean, I know it can be done well, I'm sure, but
it should go list down. It should
it should be list and discount every time.
Yeah.
And look, there are commodities out there that don't work that way, like pipe. You know, there is no list price for certain types of pipe. It's whatever the market is, and you're going to make X% off of it. I don't like it, but I recognize that that's just part of it. So yeah, it's there. It works. You see how it works. We are having a pricing discussion, so I think you have to at least put it out there. But, to me, it's like I would just much rather see using pricing strategies that don't result in your gross profit dollars being diminished when you're able to buy the item at a cheaper price. Mm-hmm. That's where I see the slippage. It's like, well, I could buy a container of these from overseas and get them 20% cheaper, but what's the point if we're just going to give it away? Right. So let's see. I was going to look at my list and see if I had anything else on there, but I don't think I have anything else.
Let's talk about. So, we have helped people we have the ability to interrupt the pricing engine in P21. And we've done that in simple ways. Like we had a customer that if this price comes from this price page, round it up or add it, make it 99 cents, or if it comes from this location, there's a certain fee they want added to it. And so what we can do is we can capture what P21 was going to calculate as that price and adjust it accordingly to whatever your needs are. But we've also done much more complicated pieces of software where the user doesn't know, but we're intercepting that and doing our own wholly individual calculation based on many different factors and then bringing that back into P21. Obviously, there's limitations when a customer is hosted versus on-prem, hosted by Epicor versus on-prem. But some of those things can still be done even for hosted customers.
Yeah, so essentially there's a business rule event that allows you to react to the calculation of a sales price, right? And you get in order entry, and you get a lot of data available to you to work with, and so we've been able to leverage that in a couple of different ways, but the biggest ones are when a customer has, like, they either have their own mechanism for implementing strategic pricing, or they're using a different third party to develop their strategic pricing schema, and they need to figure out a way to implement it in P21. And we've also worked with customers who have extremely complex job pricing. And I'm talking about they're going and cutting a deal with a supplier, and they're buying for that job, but everything's really coming into the inventory anyway. So it's all about, hey, we said we'd sell you this many at this cost, and you're supposed to then turn around and sell them to that customer at XYZ price. And you need a way to manage all of that. And once you've sold the 100, the price goes back up to normal. Or if the customer, and this is something P21 can't really contemplate as far as I know, but let's say that you made a deal with your supplier that they're going to sell you 200 of these for $10 instead of 15, right? Well, what happens if that job goes off and they didn't need all 200 of them? They only used 150. Well, you're still entitled to buy 50 at the reduced cost. How do you keep up with all of that? And so, and then not only are you cutting all of these deals on the selling side, you have to be able to back push them into the purchasing side and say, hey, you're entitled to buy, you might have the same item on a PO 4 different times at 4 different prices, because you're entitled under these different contractual agreements to buy at all these different costs. And so those are extreme high complexity, but it's doable. And we have found that customers feel like in a lot of cases it's worth the investment up front, because the rewards, I mean, we had a customer tell us flat out, this is worth 2 margin points to us if we get this right. Well, yeah, they were a $300 million company. That is a lot of money on the line. And I think that in our experience, it's easy to get caught up on how much it costs to build something that's that custom. And I mean, it was what? It was over $100,000. I mean, it was expensive. Oh, yeah. But $100,000 to pick up what, $6 million a year for life. I mean, it doesn't, a situation like that, you can't spend enough money to go capture that margin.
Right.
You know, the scale's just too big. So that's something that, you know, we haven't really talked about a lot on the live streams, but trying to, when you're looking at big system customizations, trying to figure out how long is it going to take you to pay it off? Like, what is this worth you to get it done? If you're contemplating doing something that's going to increase your margin by controlling your selling price, or lower your cost by taking advantage of things that you couldn't otherwise, or charge more freight than you otherwise would trying to remember to do it manually, or whatever, I mean, those things usually pay for themselves in months, not years. I mean, it is a very fast payback.
And we try to, if somebody wants something huge and big, and we're like, we'll tell you if we don't see the cost benefit.
Yeah, absolutely.
From the outside, and if we can see it from the outside,
yeah,
and we're telling you not to spend the money with us, you know, it makes sense to do it, and sometimes it doesn't.
We recently did a rule for surcharging, which is really hard to do.
So many places.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of places you could go haywire, and we had a couple hundred hours in that. I mean, it was big, but it had to be right every single time. I mean, there was just no room for error, and it had to work in multiple parts of the system and so on and so forth. But when that rule hit, I mean, it charged $37,000 worth of surcharges the first day. It was literally paid for in less than 48 hours.
Yep.
So the point being is, you know, it may seem like a lot to get into some of this stuff, but the benefits to your business can so grossly outweigh it that it's 100% worth it every time. So dream big. We tell people dream big, and we try to figure out a way to execute on it that's as cost effective as it can be, but at the same time we're developing competitive advantage and IP for the customer, and you know that's not cheap to do because you're doing things that in most cases have never been done before. So yeah, Matt, that's like all I can think of for pricing, man. I know I thought we'd be on it the full 4 hours, but I think we're gonna
well, and there's things that I think warrant their own conversation about pricing, whether it's consignment contracts, rebate contracts. You know, they're more elaborate than you can squeeze into a general sales pricing.
Yeah, for sure.
But you know, I think we've hit the bulk of the ways to price things in P21. I will just say, don't be sold on, well, this is exactly the way we have to do it because it's the way we've always done it. And less is more.
Yeah.
If you can get away with more generalized pricing, you know, and then handle the exceptions with job contracts or specialized libraries, your life will be much better when you go to update and maintain those types of things. And we have some customers that ask for easier ways to update those things. We've done a tool where you can import contract pricing into it and set it to go live in a future date. And then users can see that in P21 that, hey, on this date, this contract line's changing.
Mm-hmm.
And we also made it so they can manipulate it from within P21 that, hey, you know what, instead of changing this to 254, we're going to change it to 135, and it will go back to the tool and update that information. So
the real power of that project, if I remember correctly, Matt, was once that was implemented, they had the ability to calculate the impact of a price increase and take that to their customer and say, hey, you know, the contract's changing this, but based on your usage for the last year in real dollars, this is the impact of that. And they could shape their pricing to try to get to an impact that their customer could deal with. So right. It from the feedback we got on that, it totally changed. It gave them so much more leverage to walk to the negotiating table with their clients. So stuff like that, again, it's huge.
I'll say one last, and we didn't really talk about it, and because to me, there's not really a great way to do it in P21. I know we had to do some custom reporting. If you have a customer call and say, hey, send me my price sheet.
That's hard.
It's really hard if you're using libraries and contracts. You essentially have to, the way we did it, we created it where we could run it by customer, by location, and by, I want to say we used product group or price. I don't remember. We basically gave them a subset, and then we basically pushed all those things through the price engine.
Yep.
To generate a report. So out of the box, you saw how we struggled with just on that one screen where we had to go put the contract in to be able to get that. So that is one thing that if you do have customers wanting, just like you want price sheets from your suppliers, sometimes customers want those price sheets. And so you do have to get a little bit creative. I have seen people that, these customers only buy these 200 items, and so they put they put a quote in the system and send that quote as a price sheet, basically.
Yeah.
But that takes
a lot of effort.
Yeah. So keep that in mind. That's another struggle. I think that the information's there, it's just not readily available.
Well, I think we're going to wrap it up based on that. We appreciate everybody dropping in and watching all or some of the live stream. And don't know what we're going to do next Tuesday yet, but we'll come up with something. And
I haven't thought past the next 5 minutes.
No, I know. we'll make a decision on that later. But anyway, we appreciate all you guys. We'll see you next week. And we're done.